So we are assembled here today and in other parts of the country to mark a historic day in the life of our nation. Wherever South Africans are across the globe, our hearts are beat as one as we renew our common loyalty to our country and our commitment to its future. The birth of our South African nation has, like any other, passed through a long and often painful process. The ultimate goal of a better life has yet to be realized. But if any one day marked the crossing of the divide from a post of conflict and division to the possibility of unity and peace, from inequality to equality, from a history of oppression to a future of freedom, it is 27th of April 1994. On this day, you, the people, took your destiny into your own hands. You decided that nothing would prevent you from exercising your hard-won right to elect a government of your choice. Your patience, your discipline, your single-minded purposefulness have become a legend throughout the world. You won this respect because you made the simple but profound statement that the time had come for the people to govern. You turned our diversity from a weakness to be exploited for selfish ends into a richness to be celebrated for the good of all. Today we meet to reaffirm that we are one people with one destiny, a destiny that we can now shape together from the sweat of our brow.
That was President Nelson Mandela, former president, that is, of course, 1994, back in the day. That is the day that we are celebrating today, the 27th of April. It is Freedom Day, people. It's Wednesday, the 27th of April, 2016. This is Newsroom on SABC News on Channel 404. If you've just joined us, Jumbo Africa, and a very warm welcome. We are broadcasting live from our Auckland Park studios in Johannesburg, South Africa, to the rest of the African continent. I'm Elvis Preslin, and I will be with you until 1200 hours. Now, we're also streaming live on YouTube with the entire show available on our YouTube channel. Now, today is Freedom Day, and we'll be focusing on the day back in 1994 when millions of South Africans cast their vote at the ballot box for the very first time in the history of our beloved country. Now, the question that we pose to you this morning is, what does Freedom Day mean to you? That's the question. You can let us know what's on your mind on the Facebook page as well as on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom. So let's now go live to the event that's happening in Guyana, and we are speaking to the communications officer, the communications head of the SANDF, Brigadier General Mabanga. A very good morning to you, sir, and welcome. Brigadier General, can you hear me? Well,
yes, I can.
Brigadier General, please tell us what is currently happening there. Give us an update what is happening in Guyana.
Participating in the national celebration, Freedom Day celebration, and is involved in elements such as the provision of ceremonial guards who are going to provide a guard of honor for the President of the Republic, who is also the Commander-in-Chief of the South African National Defence Force. Then they will also have a fly past during the playing of the national anthem, as well as the 21-gun salute in honor or in respect of the President. Then after we will have other demonstrations that will be performed by the South African Army ceremonial guards.
What else can we expect during the day, Brigadier? Or at least the Brigadier, I believe, can't hear us right now.
Elements of the South African National Defence Force that are involved with the security of the area as part of the security cluster. We also have elements from the South African Air Force that will do the air display, just as part of what we normally do on the Freedom Day celebrations. The South African National Defence Force is also providing the aide-de-camp, which are normally the ones that will lead the president either to the stage or to where he will be taking the salute in the podium before the proceeding starts. On the arrival of the president, and then there will be the guard of honor, and then he goes to the podium where he will take the national salute, and thereafter proceed with the program as planned.
Brigadier, thank you so much. That was Brigadier General Mabanga giving us an update as to what will transpire there today in Guyana, and we'll keep you updated as the proceedings continue. But right now, let's take it off with the news with Renee coming up next. A very good morning to you, Renee.
Good morning, Elvis.
It's Freedom Day today.
I know, very important day, of course, for South African history. Lots of celebrations taking place around the country today. Very exciting. Good to reflect, actually.
Yes. Let's start off with the news.
President Jacob Zuma is set to address the main Freedom Day celebrations at the Kiani Stadium in Limpopo later this morning. The day will be celebrated under the theme, Together Building Better Communities, Local Government is Everybody's Business. Freedom Day is observed annually to celebrate Freedom Day and democracy, and also to commemorate the first post-apartheid elections held on April 27, 1994. The elections were the first all-race national polls where everybody of voting age was allowed to vote. President Jacob Zuma has urged South Africans to use the day to promote unity and work together to build a non-racial, non-sexist, democratic and prosperous South Africa. Police Minister Nathi Nhleko has confirmed that the Hawks are investigating EFF leader Julius Malema's statement regarding the violent removal of the government. Malema was speaking on an international news channel at the weekend. He told Al Jazeera that his party would remove the government through the barrel of a gun if the ANC manipulates the results in the upcoming local elections. The ANC laid a charge of treason on Monday. The police minister says the threat of violence is always taken seriously. Meanwhile, the EFF has come out in defense of Malema. In an interview with the SABC, EFF Secretary-General Godrich Gardia said they prepared to defend the party and its leader in court. We'll be taking a short ad break and we'll be back after this.
The big news is Newsroom.
We also stream live on YouTube.
Whether you're at home, at the office, or at the gym, wherever you are, Newsroom is right there with you. Bringing you all the latest news, updates, sports, weather, and everything in between. Get all the latest news you need on the go via live streaming on our YouTube channel. That's Newsroom, weekdays at 9 a.m. only on the SABC News Channel.
Now, this year marks the 20th anniversary since the final version of our Constitution was adopted as Act 108 of 1996. Our Constitution marked a radical break from an oppressive past and set out a vision for an equal, free and fair new South Africa. The Apartheid Museum is hosting a panel discussion where 4 panellists, Advocate George Bezos, Mbali Ntuli, retired Justice Zaki Yaqub and Gita Patha, will focus the discussion on minding the gap between ideal and reality. Joining us now in studio is the Deputy Director from the Apartheid Museum, Wadi Davis. A very good morning to you, Wadi, and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you.
First and foremost, tell us about the theme of the discussion, of this year's panel discussion, minding the gap between reality and, or ideal and reality.
Yeah. The debate actually took place last night. What we were trying to do is to discover where we are in terms of our freedom. And then more than that, we wanted to say, what is freedom? What does it mean to you? What does it mean to somebody else? How do you measure that freedom? What yardstick do you use to measure that freedom? And I think it was a pertinent discussion. It was well attended and it was very engaging. Our panelists came with beautiful insights. And it was something that an institution such as the Apartheid Museum has to do to provide the kind of platforms for this kind of dialogue to take place.
So what came out of that discussion? Because I can imagine it must have been very heated to a certain extent. And what does it exactly mean to be free in a modern-day South Africa today?
Well, I think there were no conclusive answers to that. But what did come about, for example, George Bezos said, our Constitution is the document that we should be referring to and working with. He also said that Mandela's legacy was the kind of aspirations we should have. He was a little bit annoyed about the fact that there was some talk amongst young people that Mandela sold us out and that kind of talk, and he wanted to put that record straight and say that is not so at all. So his was very much related to the Constitution. Justice Yaqub, he's such a beautiful character. He was more... he was talking about the past and saying that a lot of young people are also saying perhaps it was better in apartheid, and he rubbished that totally, obviously. He's also said that we have to look at the Constitution as well as our handbook. He also came out with a few more insights, which just escapes me for this minute. It will come back to me. Then we had Gita Patha, who produced a list of statistics that were horrific, where she spoke about 2 people having the net worth of 50% of South Africans, and more than that, actually. And that was shocking as well. And then we had Mbali Ntuli, who spoke about how the structure of our Constitution and our governance has to change in order for change to take place. So it was very diverse discussions, but it was really interesting. And then we had the audience members engage in as well, which was wonderful, and especially young people, and they are straight to the point. And what came out from a lot of that was that unless there's economic freedom, there's no other freedom.
So from the discussions that you had over the years, are you seeing that people understand what their freedom actually means for them in post-apartheid South Africa?
I think I more understand, or we can see, that there's a big disillusionment in our government. There's a big disappointment in our former leaders. My personal impression is that unless people are economically free and psychologically free, there's going to be no real freedom. How they measure that individually, I don't know. That's a personal thing.
Did it maybe come out in the panel discussion whether or not freedom mean that we are entitled to do as we please, or that perhaps that these freedoms does not just comes with these rights, but you do have responsibilities to look after those freedoms?
I think what came out strongly in Gita's presentation was that as individuals, we have to ensure the freedom of others. And we talk about the quote of Mandela where he said, to be free is not merely to take off one's chains, but to respect and enhance the freedom of others. And I think that kind of encompasses the end result of that debate last night, is that we all have a responsibility obviously freedom comes with massive responsibility, and we as citizens have a responsibility to our own people, as we did in the past. During the struggle years, we sought each other, we helped each other, and we've got to build that culture up again.
These debates seem to be very, very informational as well as educational. What do you do at the Apartheid Museum with these type of debates to let ordinary South Africans know about them?
Well, we try and advertise as much as possible. We put it on our website, our Facebook page. We send it out to a database of people. We send it to the museums associations. And we have Eusebius Makaiser as our moderator for the year. And he's got a massive amount of followers on all social media. So that's, and then, of course, we have schools that we engage with and bring to these debates as well.
As the Apartheid Museum, why would people want to visit the museum? Or why should they?
Why should they? I think that it's important that people know what the history is and that they understand what the struggle was about and how people died and struggled and suffered. And then to realize that we can never go back there. And we have a responsibility to ensure that we are looking after our Bill of Rights, and that was Jacob's other main the content of his discussion was our Bill of Rights is probably the most important document, and that's what we've got to look after. And I think this is what the museum is doing, is saying, this is our history, here's where we are, let's not go there again, and let's move forward from here.
Any special thing or celebrations or that you're having today during the course of Freedom Day today at the Apartheid Museum?
No, we had it last night, and our next debate will be on the 16th of June around youth.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us here in studio. That was the
Thank
Deputy
you.
Director from the Apartheid Museum, Wadey Davey, joining us. Well, that's our theme for today. We're looking at Freedom Day now. President Jacob Zuma will today address the main Freedom Day celebrations at the Giyani Stadium in Limpopo. You've seen it a little bit earlier. The day will be celebrated under the theme, Together, Building Better Communities. Local government is everybody's business. Remember that you can send us your comments on at SABC Newsroom. That is the Twitter handle. Like us on the Facebook page. If you like us there, you become part and parcel of the Informed here on Newsroom. This is your favorite channel on Channel 404. Let's take a look at those comments. This one from Alter Ego tweeting, no one is free if you really think about it. Hashtag Freedom Day. That one from Alter Ego. Monique says, reminded that had it not been for the brave fight against apartheid, waking up next to my husband wouldn't have been illegal. Happy. Hashtag Freedom Day, says Monique. Cornelia says, this freedom was never handed to us on a silver platter. Let's proceed, embrace it with hope, joy, and great anticipation. Hashtag Freedom Day. And this one from Pac-Man says, transformation is not saying, I beg your pardon, youth must go away. Transformation stands on the crossroads and laments for inclusive policies. Hashtag Freedom Day. That one from the Pac-Man. Katlejo says, any freedom is better than no freedom at all. Let's celebrate what we have and strive for what we want. Let's not despair about keeping the hope alive. But keep the hope alive, he says there. Now there's a picture there of former President Nelson Mandela. Freedom can never be taken for granted. Each generation must safeguard it and extend it. Nelson Mandela, former president. Now, we're celebrating Freedom Day today. I'd like to get your thoughts on the Facebook page as well as on the Twitter handle. 22 years of freedom. This is this day, April the 27th, 1994. Back in the day, South Africa held its first free election, where all South Africans, regardless of race, color, or creed, could vote freely. Nelson Mandela was voted into office as the very first president in the new nation, heading the AFC at that point in time. More than 2 decades later, the African National Congress is still the ruling party in South Africa, but they are both celebrations and frustrations. Since last year, the students' protests have highlighted the need for further transformation as thousands brought universities to a standstill, from the Fees Must Fall movement to the statute debate and language policies. There's still a lot more to be discussed in our free nation. So, joining us now in studio is the Head of Advocacy and Communications at the Human Rights Commission, Gail Smith. A very good morning to you, Gail, and welcome.
Good morning.
First and foremostly, let's reflect back on 22 years of our freedom. And do you think that we are truly free as a nation and as a society?
I think we are free, and I think it was a hard-won freedom. But, I mean, as Mandela said, to be free is not merely to cast off your chains, but to live in a way that enhances and protects the freedom of others. And so I think we are all kind of enjoined then to ensure that freedom is a lived reality for everyone.
We have a number of freedoms as enshrined in our Constitution, and of course we enjoy those rights, but they do come with responsibilities. Do you think that we fully understand those responsibilities, though?
I think that 20 years in the life of a democracy is very little, really, if you consider the established democracies of the West, where people have had rights for generations, but still have to learn that with those rights come responsibilities. So I think we do have to be a little bit easy on ourselves. We're still learning what our rights are, and we're learning what our responsibilities are. It's a process, as Mandela said, it's not an event.
Yes.
We are learning as we go along.
It is a marathon that we all got to abide by, and we need to strive for a better society. But those freedoms that we have currently, do every single South African understand those rights?
No, they don't. And the truth is that we have a very, very wonderful and sophisticated constitution, which has a whole range of rights. And part of our mandate as the Human Rights Commission is to educate people about their rights. And, those of us who live in urban environments and who are more middle class almost take our rights for granted. But there are millions of South Africans who don't understand their rights, and that's where we come in. We do a lot of work educating people, not only about their rights, but how to access redress when they feel their rights have been violated. So, no, I don't think everybody understands their rights. I do think that it is a process of education.
Tell us about those programs.
So we have something called human rights clinics. So, people who have access, people who live in cities can go to any provincial office and they will be assisted there. But there are also people who live in outlying rural areas who don't have access to the internet, who don't have necessarily access to electricity and other, things that can allow them to access their rights. So we have clinics in those areas where people can come to us and we explain their rights to them. So that's a big part of the work that we do in rural and outlying communities.
And what is sort of response that you've received from people that hear about this the very first time?
We have an incredible response. I mean, the Human Rights Commission, bear in mind, we're 45 million people in this country, and the Human Rights Commission consists of 207 dedicated men and women who every day, go out and talk to people about their rights. There's a phenomenal response. People do come and they do ask for help and they do ask for assistance. So we, on the public surface of it, people often criticize us, but what people don't understand, is that there actually is a lot of work on the ground where people are actually accessing information through us.
Where do we draw the line for standing up for one's beliefs and rights and infringing on others' rights, like the current student protest, the recent student protest that we've seen, the Roads Must Fall campaign and so forth? How do we make sure that we don't curb others' rights?
Well, I think, as you said, all rights come with responsibilities, and I think that the current student protests have a history, and I don't think any of us can forget 1976 when, students really took protests to the streets. I think there's a long history of student protest in this country, and I think that it is also part of the education. We always judge the protests by the outliers or the people who cause the trouble, and I think the important thing for us is to really, accept that students have a right, people have a right to access to education, and access to education is one of the big areas that we as the Commission deal with.
What more do you think needs to be done for all South Africans really to cherish this freedom that we fought so hard for?
I think, the old slogan, each one, teach one. I think it's very important for us to reach across divides and to talk to the other, about their rights, and to make sure if you see someone whose rights are being violated, even if they don't look like you or they're not the same color or religion as you, it's very important. Our Constitution binds us all to transformation, and I think it's important that we all take part in educating each other about human rights.
Any special event that you're hosting today as the Human Rights Commission?
Yes. Yes, our chairperson is in the provinces, so he will be doing some things. But tomorrow, we're having a very, very, very important conference on human rights-based policing. So having an important dialogue with key people in the police, the South African police services and civil society to talk about human rights in the context of the very important responsibility of policing. And the minister will be there as well as really sort of high-level people from the South African Police Service.
Gail, thank you so much for joining us in studio. That was Gail Smith. She is the head of advocacy and communications at the Human Rights Commission, joining us in studio. Now, you can also join in the discussion. You can tweet us on the Twitter handle, the SABC Newsroom. You can also let us know what's on your mind on the Facebook page. Now, our tweet pick of the day is sponsored by Roy Africa, and it comes from Mariah Carey. She says, "Happy Freedom Day, South Africa. I feel blessed to be here with you on this day." Is she in the country? Does anybody know? I haven't seen her. Well, let us know if you've seen her. She's in the country. She's tweeting that we should celebrate it today. That's Mariah Carey there with you. And remember, on the photo you saw her there with Madiba. That's back in the day when she was here for the first time, right? So she still cherished that moment, I take it. Now let's take a look at some of the front pages of the newspapers from around the globe. And we start off in Europe. The Times reports that the political backing for Sir Philip Green was ebbing away last night amid cross-party calls for him to be stripped of his knighthood over the sale and collapse of BHS. There you have it, Tycoon's knighthood at risk over BHS collapse. There in Great Britain. Now in the UK, United States, the USA Today says that the primaries aren't over, but the general election has begun. Donald, the man with the trump card, and Hillary Clinton bolstering their formidable leads in the convention delegates after the 5 northeastern primaries yesterday, where they are increasingly focusing on the fall campaign that they expect to wage between each other. And finally, in China, the South China Morning Post reports that Hong Kong's leaders warned that a minority of people advocating independence will cost the city's Beijing support, and everyone will end up facing the political and economic consequences. Forced to split from China, hurt all in Hong Kong. That's the front page there. Those are all the papers from around the globe. Later on, we'll take a look at the papers here on the African continent. But let's now take a look at what's happening in the country today. Let's start off in Port Elizabeth, where Freedom Day celebrations will be held at the 100-year-old Fort Hare University. Now, university there played a significant role, as you can recall, in the liberation of the country, as many alma mater were legends of the struggle coming from that legendary university in Fort Hare. Then in Cape Town, the Castle of Good Hope, South Africa's oldest colonial building, is celebrating Freedom Day by opening its doors to all South Africans and foreigners. And in Bloemfontein, one of the biggest agricultural shows in the country begins today. There will be 450 exhibitors, and about 100,000 people are expected to attend the show. That's all happening in the City of Roses, they call it, in Bloemfontein. Now, those are some of the highlights. Include the largest let me try and get that right. Saddle show, a saddle horse show. So people will be on horses, they'll be riding. And, of course, the sheep shearing competition, where they shear the sheep. I've seen that one here in Johannesburg a couple of times. Fantastic. You must have a look at it. They got some skill, those people that do it, hey? So you must go and see it sometime. If you're in Bloemfontein this weekend, go and have a look. We'll be sure to keep you updated of more of these events happening around the country. But right now, we'll take a short break, and we'll be right back after that. Now today, Africa Cocoon will hold a legacy of friendship dialogue. Now this comes after the recent eruption of racist hate speech 22 years after transformation. Now the organization believes that if hate speech is left unchecked, it could cause transformation to regress and wear away at the social cohesion that has been developed over the years for all South Africans. But if addressed with critically, mindful of our values as a new South Africa, it presents us with a remarkable opportunity to redefine ourselves as South Africans. Now, to tell us more about today's proceedings, we are joined again in studio by the Head of Marketing and Development at Africa Cocoon, Onyi Nwaweri. Once again, a very good morning to you and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
First and foremost, tell us about today's dialogue and when will it start exactly?
Today we are holding a dialogue on legacy of Nelson Mandela, particularly around the issues of race, privilege, and whether or not we can move past the issue of race and privilege. And our key focus is trying to target the young people of South Africa and to get their voice to be heard. Because oftentimes people have a lot to say, but they're not hearing the children and young people of South Africa.
Yes.
So we want to discuss those issues and give young people an opportunity to be able to move forward, hopefully, from this.
Now, in my introduction, I mentioned transformation, but what actually is it that inspired today's dialogue?
What inspired today's dialogue is the understanding that South Africa has not necessarily dealt with the issue of race. South Africa has not, in many ways, you would say forgiven and forget. If you look at, the hate speech by Penny Sparrow in the beginning of the year, followed by a number of other people who had spoken, and the outrage by the country around the various conversations around the issue, we thought that the key issue is not necessarily race, but the key issue is also really dealing with it, speaking about it, having a conversation around it, and then moving forward from it. And that's why we feel that the solution is a solution prescribed by Nelson Mandela, who is our patron-in-chief in memoriam, which is the legacy of friendship.
Now, talking about Nelson Mandela, are we as a nation living up to his ideals, though? It's a difficult question, isn't it?
It's a difficult one because Nelson Mandela is almost not human. He's a man that came out after 27 years in prison and forgave everyone who had hurt him. He embraced his so-called enemies. He stood in front of the whole country and said to the whole country, we move forward. This is a rainbow nation. And the country is, 22 years later, the country is still struggling with it. And there are many theories. If you ask me, I think the big issue is really socioeconomic transformation. If the country transformed socioeconomically, a lot of the key issues of race will not be coming up. And I think, yes, we have freedom in terms of political freedom 22 years later, but we don't have economic freedom. And at the end of the day, I was just outside and somebody said to me, we don't have economic freedom. The bottom line is food on the table. And as long as there's no food on the table, people will continue to use the issues of the past to bring about those conversations.
Looking at the dialogue today, do you think that it'll bring some of those answers or come up with some of those recommendations that can take us forward from these young people?
From our perspective, we often undermine young people. We think they don't know anything. One of our ambassadors, who is the chairman of the South African Youth Parliament, hosted by the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund, said that people often, particularly African South Africans, say children should be heard, but should be seen, but not heard.
Yes.
But you often underestimate how much wisdom children have got. Particularly young people as well. And the essence of the dialogue is to get young people to start talking. And the truth is, 22 years, many of them are born free. They didn't experience apartheid in any way. And I think at the end of the day, all they want to see is opportunities. And we want to, through this dialogue, get their perspective on the issue, let them hear their elders, but also get them to speak in relation to what they want to see. The overall outcome for us is possibly to get everyone to move in one direction. And if we can get them to begin to think about what Nelson Mandela exemplified, the richness of his forgiveness, the richness of his understanding that what can change the nation is not more anger, not more hatred, not more hurt, but the ability to embrace each other in the spirit of Ubuntu.
Economic freedom, as you said, is one of the key pillars of to get to a point where we can understand that we all are together in this nation. We're all in one to make this nation work. But if economic freedom is on the table, how do we reach that? And how do young people relate to that? Do they think that they need to work hard for it to get it? Or is it because it's a new South Africa that we should just get it?
Our experience on the ground is that the older people almost have a spirit of entitlement and a spirit of dependency, because that's what has been promised to them as part of the political manifesto that happened 22 years ago. But the honest truth, many of the young people we deal with as Africa Take On are not necessarily interested in what government is going to give to them. They are interested in government creating an enabling environment that will enable them to be able to get what they need to get, not necessarily from a give me perspective, but from a opportunity perspective. And we feel that young people are saying, we want to work for it. We don't want to sit on the streets. But all we want, in a country, for example, that's going to grow less than 1% this year, we want to see what is government going to do to stimulate the economy. How can businesses create opportunities that can enable us to begin to access jobs, to start our own businesses and to sustain it? I'm sure you know that almost 96 out of 100 businesses started every year fail. Not because those businesses cannot survive, but because some of them don't have experience. But more importantly, the enabling environment, whether it is from a loan perspective, is not in place. So I think from our perspective, we think young people want a different future. They want to build a future that is based on hard work, based on dignity of labor, and based on the right to equality, and not just political equality, but socioeconomic equality.
And it's looking for those opportunities that they can work on to build those businesses.
That's correct.
Onyi, thank you so much for your time, and good luck with the dialogue today. You'll give us some feedback on the dialogue.
Thank you.
That was Onyi Nyoreni. She is the head of marketing and development at Africa Take On. Now, that is the discussion today. You can join in the discussion. Let us know what's on your mind on the Twitter handle. What do you think about that? And today is Freedom Day, as you know. We'd like to find out from you, what does Freedom Day mean to you? Does it come with economic freedom, as Onyi just indicated, that young people want? Or what do you think? I want to know also on the Facebook page. Like us there. If you like us there, you become part and parcel of the Informed on Newsroom. Let's take a look at some of your comments. The Constitutional Court yesterday ordered Vodacom to negotiate in good faith with Nkosana Makate, that is the name you will remember, to determine reasonable compensation for his Please Call Me idea. Now, let's take a look here on the Twitter handle. Da Vinci says, Please Call Me is now free. It's back to the owner. Happy Freedom Day to all. It's all free. Please call me. Sir Oscar says, it's high time that entrepreneurs are recognized for ideas and innovations by corporates like Vodacom. Well done, Nkosana Makate, for persisting. Now, it was a long fight, don't you think? It was a long fight that he kept on going to win back that right. Tanya says, I bet hashtag the gold diggers are all over South Africa are busy either Googling, talking about, or dreaming about. Hashtag Nkosana Makate. And that one from Tanya says gold diggers. Well, probably it's also the platinum diggers even more so. Madeleine says, I'm thrilled about hashtag Nkosana Makate's win against Vodacom, despite being persecuted daily by Please Call Me bombardments. He maintained, and at the end he won. Luandi says many bankers and magazines are doing hashtag Please Calls Me to offer their services free to Nkosana Makate. Damn boy, wish you can adopt me. I can imagine that many of these Please Call Me's will be sent through to Nkosana Makate so he can have a look at those propositions from the gold diggers, the platinum diggers, and people that want him to adopt them. Families will come out of the closet, I can tell you, this week. Let's now take a break, and we'll be right back after that.
A lot more Africans are getting smartphones. You've got 150 million people using mobile devices in this country.
This means internet connectivity is increasing. That results in access to information. Some are using social media to share new African narratives through campaigns.
The friend says, oh, I'm seeing this thing on Facebook. Where is it happening? At Yege Stadium, everybody goes there.
On Network, we tell you how Africans are staying connected. We also have new gadgets, games and social media news. That's Network with me, Spumelele Zondi, every Sunday at 19:30 Central African Time.
A very good afternoon. You're watching the Midday Report.
Lunchtime news amplified.
But for now, this is what they call home. Their hope to shift to a higher ground seems to be against the tide.
Midday Report provides you with more than just news stories.
I just want Port Elizabeth to know that they own a world-class theatre.
Good afternoon. You're with the news at 1 in the headlines.
Very good afternoon to you. This is News Live. I'm Natasha Thorpe. Let's take a quick look at what's coming up in your headlines.
Good afternoon and welcome to A View from the House.
For all things news, tune in to Midday Report weekdays at 12 noon only on the SABC News Channel.
Now, we're drifting a little bit away from our theme for today, which is Freedom Day, because it's that time of the year when some of us will be sneezing and coughing while we struggle to keep our nostrils dry from common colds and flu. Now, you might have heard that this is the right time to vaccinate. Many people did already against the flu, but some people may say or may have advised you against it. And the question is why? Now, there are many myths and misconceptions about flu and its vaccine. Now, to discuss this, we are joined in studio by the Director of the National Institute for Communicable Diseases, Professor Lucille Bloomberg. Prof, a very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning, thank you.
First and foremostly, I know that many people did already took that flu vaccine, but what do you think, why is it so important for people to vaccinate?
Well, I think it's important for a specific group to vaccinate, those who are at risk for complications of flu. Many people don't recognize that, in fact, flu causes can result in pneumonia and, in fact, a significant number of deaths. So you can prevent influenza by vaccinating and ensuring that the risk group are vaccinated. Pregnant women, those who've got other illnesses, immunodeficiencies, asthma, diabetes, who are more at risk for influenza.
Especially the older generation as well, isn't it?
The older generation
yes.
as well are at risk for complications, but the priority group, in fact, pregnant women.
Oh, okay.
Takes a pregnant woman from complications of flu and also the newborn baby up to 6 months of age from complications of influenza.
But it also keeps you up and running if you have a flu vaccine because you don't necessarily get completely sick and lay down for about 5 days to a week.
Yes, I guess anyone can be vaccinated. I think work absenteeism is a big issue during the season.
Now, there are many misconceptions about flu vaccines. Take us through why a vaccine is there and how true is it that a vaccine actually makes you sick?
Well, the vaccine doesn't cause flu. It doesn't contain live virus and it can't cause flu.
Yes.
Some people may experience a bit of tiredness, a bit of local pain, and in the interim they may get some other respiratory infections, and they all attribute this to flu from the vaccine, which is not an issue.
Is there a difference between flu and colds?
Definitely. So flu is caused by influenza virus. It causes quite severe illness and debilitation, even if it's uncomplicated. High fever, you're flattened, very tired, muscle pain, cold shivers, hot sweats, and a dry cough. Cold is generally uncomplicated, stuffy nose, sneezing, goes away quite quickly.
Now, some people even suggested that when you do get a cold, that you should actually get an antibiotic. Is that the wrong information that they have at
Absolutely.
hand?
Lots of respiratory viruses, common colds get better on their own very quickly. Antibiotics would not be effective and should not be taken.
In fact, it can work against you, antibiotics.
We overuse antibiotics, leading to lots of resistance. So symptomatic treatment is ideal.
Now, Prof, I know that most of the people have been vaccinated, so we don't really have to go too deep into it, but there's another issue of malaria that people should be aware of. Talk to us about that.
So the flu season, in fact, has not started. We have a monitoring program, and we show that it starts probably towards the end of May, peaks in June. But many people will be travelling now to areas where there is malaria, and malaria has very similar symptoms to flu: headache, cold shivers, muscle pain. So I think if you've travelled to a malaria area over these holidays and you think you've got a flu, you need an urgent test for malaria.
Okay.
Important message.
And those areas, and I love going to Mozambique, and that's one of the areas where one should be on the lookout for.
Yes.
And what are some of the other areas, even in South Africa, that one should be on the lookout for?
Well, in fact, we've done quite a lot to reduce malaria, but very northern part of KwaZulu-Natal, there is a little low-felt areas of Mpumalanga and the northeastern parts of Limpopo. Mozambique is high risk, and people need to take preventative measures to reduce being bitten.
And what are those preventative measures that one should take?
Well, prevent mosquito bites.
Yes.
The mosquitoes bite between dusk and dawn. Apply an effective insect repellent. And to Mozambique, you might need a net and maybe some preventative medication. But key is to think of malaria when you present with this flu-like illness on return. It's not flu season yet.
Go and see your doctor.
Absolutely, urgently.
Prof, as usual, thank you so much for informing us.
Much.
All right, wonderful. That is the Director of the National Institute for Communicable Diseases, Professor Lucille Bloomberg, joining us in studio. Now, remember that you can engage with us on the Facebook page as well as on the Twitter handle. There are some comments, the 4 sporting codes that were penalised by the Minister of Sports and Recreation, Fikile Mbalula, for failing to meet their transformation targets, have only themselves to blame. Now, let's take a look at some of the comments that have been coming through. Remember, once again, that you can send your comment on the Facebook page as well as on the Twitter handle at SABC News. This one from Thabo Mbeki says, my mum works in a village school. No coach is trying to drive there to come and train the kids, even for athletics. And that is so sad. I see them struggle yearly, says Thabo. This one from Kenny Mackenzie says, how's transformation in sports supposed to be successful if we fail to give township children top quality facilities? And that's a key problem there, Kenny, that needs to be addressed. Divine says at Mbalula Fikile, why hasn't government put money into developing these sports from primary level at schools in South Africa, and then there would be transformation? There's one thing that's also problematic there, and that is that the sports at school, some schools don't even have a sporting field. People saying sports transformation can't happen overnight, says Deacon Nam. Are you guys measuring in the God created the earth time scale? Well, that's a question there from Deacon Nam. Melisandra says, I actually support this move. It's in the interest of visible transformation, something that South African sports are lacking, says Melisandra. These are some of your comments. You can keep them coming. We're also asking you about Freedom Day. What does it mean to you today? Let us know on the Twitter handle as well as on the Facebook page. By the way, if you like us there, you become part and parcel of the Informed on Newsroom. Absenteeism from work is said to cost the South African economy billions of rands annually. Can you believe that? Now, the biggest cause for genuine absenteeism around this time of the year is, of course, the dreaded flu bug. Occupational wellness practitioners suggest that companies introduce a flu vaccination program which immunizes staff members against the flu. Now, to explore the extent to which flu absenteeism costs the South African economy, we're joined in studio by the Director of Limitless Occupational Therapy Services, Naseho Mashishi Matlala. A very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning to you too.
Naseho, let's start off with that all-important question. Should we vaccinate all our staff members to make sure that they're at work all the time?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Yes.
I mean, I always say to people, we should always remember that when employers employ people, the human capital is an investment. So the employer needs the return on investment. And much like machinery that breaks down, if you contract flu, you're also not providing the service that you're supposed to be providing within the work environment. therefore it affects the company's return on investment. So definitely, and research has shown over the past 3 years that absenteeism has somewhat stabilized over the years, predominantly because health practitioners have introduced flu vaccinations within the workplace.
Now talk to us about cost. How much does it cost the South African economy with absenteeism because of the flu bug?
Goodness. Well, according to the absenteeism statistics company Camp Solutions, in the past year, it costs about approximately 2.7 billion rand just from the absenteeism due to flu. So not considering other conditions like lower back pains or mental health issues, but just from flu. And the primary reason that I see is that we must remember that when you're at the workplace, there's work speed that must be considered, work tolerance, your work stamina, and signs and symptoms of flu impact negatively on those particular factors that you need in order to perform optimally in the workplace. So it is really quite a staggering amount for the country.
Now, from that revenue perspective, so it is important for employers to get all their staff immunized or vaccinated for that matter.
Yes, definitely, or make provision. I mean, a lot of medical aids now make provision for that. Just create a wellness day where your employees can go and get vaccinated, or call in a doctor that can come on the premises. I mean, it will be more beneficial for the company to take a preventative approach as opposed to a more reactive and curative approach.
Because that is also key, because if you are sick, you're full of flu, you come to work, you become a liability to the organization, which will cost the company more.
Yes, and you make other people sick as well.
But what are the personal benefits for staff if they are vaccinated?
Well, if you want to function at your optimum level, I mean, in the open labor market, you need to be competitive at all times. When your employer is now going to consider promotional opportunities for you, and you have a record of habitual absenteeism, although it is legitimate and it is due to flu, it will always count against you. So it is in your best interest as an individual to make sure that you are a well-oiled machine that is ready to function at any time and is effective and efficient even through the winter times.
Now you talk about a wellness day. So do many companies do that for their employees to make sure that they are well all the time?
Well, unfortunately, what I've seen is that a lot of employers don't invest a lot, especially in South Africa, in employee wellness programs, because it seems as if the budget will go to waste. But it's something that should be practiced in order to make sure that ultimately the money that you make from having a more stronger workforce will counter the expenditure of having a wellness day. So screening and providing vaccinations for the flu and promoting healthy lifestyle will in turn only benefit the country, only benefit the company.
Now, how do we compare South Africa with our neighbours with regards to wellness days and taking care of our employees here in South Africa as compared to other countries?
Well, I must say the developed countries have the luxury of actually having budgets for that, and also they have that mind shift that they want to take a more preventative approach. So there will be things like wellness days, but also the flexibility around how people work. You know, developed countries, a lot of people work from home if they are sick. So we, as South Africa, are still moving towards that direction where we actually implement more effective systems that encourage employee assistance programs and wellness programs within the workplace. So we still have a little way to go.
Yeah, because we want our employees in front of a desk, in front of the computer, then we know they are there and they're working. But, you know, if they're at home working from a computer, they do the same thing, don't they?
Yes, because what counts is the bottom line and meeting your key performance indicators.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us here in studio.
Thank you for having me.
That was the Director of Limitless Occupational Therapy Services, Lesego Mashishi Mantlala, joining us here in studio. Vaccinate and be free of the flu. It's Freedom Day. We'll take a break.
Very good afternoon. You're watching the Midday Report.
Lunchtime news amplified.
But for now, this is what they call home. Their hope to shift to higher ground seems to be against the tide.
Midday Report provides you with more than just news stories.
I just want Port Elizabeth to know that they own a world-class theatre.
Good afternoon. You're with the news at 1 in the headlines.
Very good afternoon to you. This is News Live. I'm Natasha Thorpe. Let's take a quick look at what's coming up in your headlines.
Good afternoon and welcome to A View from the House.
For all things news, tune in to Midday Report weekdays at 12 noon only on the SABC News channel.
_27th of April 2016. It's Wednesday, it's Freedom Day. This is Newsroom on SABC News, Channel 404, Jumbo Africa. And a very warm welcome as we broadcast live from our Auckland Park studios in Johannesburg, South Africa, to the rest of the African continent. I'm Elvis Presslin.
And I'm Renee Vest, and we'll be with you until 12 o'clock today. We're also streaming live on YouTube with the entire show available on our YouTube channel. Today, of course, we are celebrating Freedom Day, and we'll be focusing on this day back in 1994, when millions of South Africans cast their vote at the ballot box for the very first time in the history of our beloved country.
So we're asking you a question this morning. What does Freedom Day mean to you? You can send us your comments on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom as well as on our Facebook page. But first, let's take a look at your news headlines with Renee.
President Jacob Zuma is expected to address crowds as South Africa celebrates National Freedom Day when the country held its first non-racial democratic elections. Police Minister Nathi Nhleko confirms that the Hawks are investigating EFF leader Julius Malema's statement regarding the violent removal of the government. And the Constitution Court orders cellular network giant Vodacom to compensate the inventor of the Please Call Me text message. Let's take a look at the sports headlines with Kendall.
Good morning, Renee. Good morning, Elvis. And good morning to you. Thank you very much. This is what we've got in the sports today. Well, let's turn on the heat up on log leaders Mamelodi Sundowns as they beat SuperSport United 2-0. This happened in Atteridgeville last night. Right now, it seems like we are going to be doing the sports headline a little later because we'd love to show you the pictures. We're going to take a short break and see if we can bring those pictures to you because it really was exciting to see Wits beating our SuperSport United.
When you're growing a business, you're not just doing it for yourself.
Hey, Dad.
But we know you knew that. When getting things to run smoothly means food on the table. But we know you knew that. We know success is not final. We also know failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts. The courage to grow is business. We've got the advisors, products and solutions that enable you to do so.
A very good afternoon. You're watching the Midday Report.
Lunchtime news amplified.
But for now, this is what they call home. Their hope to shift to a higher ground seems to be against the tide.
Midday Report provides you with more than just news stories.
I just want Port Elizabeth to know that they own a world-class theatre.
Good afternoon. You're with the news at 1 in the headlines.
Very good afternoon to you. This is News Live. I'm Natasha Thorpe. Let's take a quick look at what's coming up in your headlines.
Good afternoon and welcome to A View from the House.
For all things news, tune in to Midday Report weekdays at 12 noon only on the SABC News channel.
Welcome back. Let's take a look at your news today. President Jacob Zuma is set to address the main Freedom Day celebrations at the Kiani Stadium in Limpopo later this morning. The day will be celebrated under the theme, Together Building Better Communities, Local Government is Everybody's Business. Freedom Day is observed annually to celebrate freedom and democracy and also to commemorate the first post-apartheid elections held on April 27, 1994. The elections were the first all-race national polls where everybody of voting age was allowed to vote. President Jacob Zuma has urged South Africans to use the day to promote unity and work together to build a non-racial, non-sexist, democratic and prosperous South Africa. Palestinians have inaugurated a giant statue of Nelson Mandela It was donated by the city of Johannesburg to the West Bank city of Ramallah. The 6-meter 2-ton bronze statue was handed over by Johannesburg's Mayor Parks Tau. Among dignitaries at the ceremony was Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. The former president, who died in 2013, was an ardent supporter of the Palestinian cause and a champion for peace in the Middle East. His statue will tower over the renamed Nelson Mandela Square in the Al Tahrir district. Police Minister Nathi Nhleko has confirmed that the Hawks are investigating EFF leader Julius Malema's statement regarding the violent removal of the government. Malema was speaking on an international news channel at the weekend, and he told Al Jazeera that his party would remove the government through the barrel of a gun if ANC manipulated the results of the upcoming local elections. The ANC laid a charge of treason on Monday. The police minister says a threat of violence is always taken seriously.
It's only a duly constituted court of law that can arrive at such a conclusion, amongst other things, not anybody else. Now, so it doesn't matter what you actually call it. The point is, it is only an investigative process that will eventually lead to a point of categorization in terms of whether is it high treason and whether it's constituted under crimes against the state or any other. For an example, it's the process of investigation that essentially will do that. So a complainant will always express a view. Now that there is an investigation, let's give the investigation a chance, and let's see what that investigation actually effectively yields.
Meanwhile, the EFF has come out in defense of Malema. In an interview with the SABC, EFF Secretary General Godrich Gardier said they're prepared to defend the party and its leader in court.
Then bring it on. We'll meet in court. They've lost quite a number of times in court. They've got some quack legal advisors who have been misleading them ever since we came to Parliament, and we're watching the space. If they could do it to the economic freedom fighters, we will ask the courts to explain certain aspects of remarks that have been made by quite senior people of the ruling party.
The Justice Department has welcomed yesterday's decision of the High Court in Pretoria to keep SACP leader Chris Hani's killer behind bars. Earlier this year, Justice Minister Michael Masuta set aside the Medical Parole Board's decision to have Janusz Walusz freed. Walusz wanted to be released on parole pending the Justice Minister's appeal. The SACP and Hani's wife, Dimple, are against the Walusz parole. The department's spokesperson, Mthunzi Maga, says by filing for leave to appeal means that the order compelling the Justice Minister to place him on parole was automatically suspended. Cellular network giant Vodacom has 1 month to start negotiations with Nkosana Makate on the amount of compensation to be paid for his Please Call Me concept. The Constitutional Court yesterday ordered Vodacom to pay the compensation after an 8-year legal battle.
Makate, who wanted the company to compensate him for his invention, was involved in a 9-year legal battle with Vodacom. He's happy the Concord has vindicated him.
I never really lost faith that I'll win this case. I think that really kept me going, even when in times where I lost hope or I felt a bit despondent.
Handing down judgment, Justice Chris Jafta described as dishonest attempts by former Vodacom CEO Alan Not Craig to take credit for the idea.
Having admitted that it had used Mr. Magate's idea to develop the Please Call Me service, it was not ethical for Vodacom to refuse to compensate him. What compounds the matter is the fact that Vodacom entered into a contract with him under which it now sought to avoid liability by raising technical defenses.
Vodacom said in a statement that it is currently studying the verdict. Naledi Matlapeng, SABC News, Johannesburg.
That's your news for now, but Elvis, it's over to you.
Thank you, Renee. Now, it's Freedom Day today, and we're celebrating the day. We now cross to our reporter, Aldrin St. Pierre, was at Giyani to celebrate this with us. And a very good morning to you, Aldrin.
Well, good morning, Elvis. Yes, we're coming live to you from Giyani Stadium, and I have to tell you that it's a cold and a bitterly wet morning here in Giyani. Just want to show you something quickly. The grandstand's right at the back. That's where most of the people were seated earlier on. But as the rain started coming down, they've decided to move to the other side of the grandstands, which has some sort of protection. And now you have this scrum between people trying to secure their seats here at the grandstand. You also have a portion that's still vacant, and that portion has obviously been kept open for the VIPs as well as the senior officials who will be attending at this event. And I just have to say to our viewers as well, we apologize for the screen. As you might have noticed, that the screen is a bit blurry, and that's because it's currently drizzling. But as you can see, that some people are out in their numbers and they are bearing the cold weather. They are dancing and celebrating as the entertainment continues here. There was just an announcement from the program director that a marquee has been set up, and some of these people who want to find themselves under some sort of protection from the rain can go to that marquee. But back to the business of the day, as you indicated earlier on, that President Jacob Zuma will be delivering the keynote address under the theme Building Better Communities and Local Government is Everybody's Business. That is such a definitive instruction that local government is everybody's business. And that theme comes, of course, in the year 2016 as we go to the polls on the 3rd of August. But it also happens during a time where there are those political tensions. And as you've seen in the news bulletins that have been read, that story there by the EFF, where the EFF said that they're willing to take on government through the barrel of a gun. And if you look back at what happened in 1994, just before those elections, and it takes me back to a conversation that I had with Johan Krichler, the then commissioner of, the chairperson of the IEC, then speaking about the tensions, the political tensions at the time, and getting the IFP, for instance, to be willing to participate in that in that democratic and non-racial vote that eventually took place on the 27th of April. And that's the day that we're currently celebrating. But today's event also takes place during a time when racial tensions continue to simmer on social media as well. And you remember that last month, during Human Rights Day, the theme right there, the focus was around anti-racism. And I see, looking at some of the placards as well here, and on the theme of today as well, there is that emphasis around anti-racism and promoting social cohesion in the country.
Children, the people that are there today, have you spoken to some of them, and how do they feel about this particular Freedom Day?
Well, I'll tell you what, that the people here are quite excited to be here. As you can see right now, as I indicated earlier on as well, that it's raining, but yet there are still some of them who are dancing and celebrating outside. And while we were making our way here, we passed several buses at various filling stations, making their way to these celebrations. So it is quite interesting that they came out in their numbers, and these are buses that come from various places around the country. We spotted buses that came as far from Mpumalanga. But something I guess that we have to have a discussion with the organizer, hopefully the Minister of Arts and Culture, who is in charge of this event, is the issue around when we celebrate national events or commemorate national events like this event. Why is it that we don't see these events seeing a diversity of faces, be it white people, black people, as well as Indians, celebrating these events? Most of the time when we go out to these events, and tell you what, I've covered a lot of these events, you mostly see black people coming out in their numbers. And it makes me think about a conversation that I also had with Frank Chigani of the South African Council of Churches, where he said last year that white people will now also have to come to the party.
Now, the program was supposed to start at 10, but can you take us through the program as such and what we can expect for the day?
Well, it's still unclear what time exactly the program will start, as you've indicated that it has been delayed. but the program will start with the official guard of honor from the military, and there will be a military parade, and then there will be a vote. There will be messages of support as well from the premier of the province, and then of course the keynote address from President Jacob Zuma. It's still unclear at this point when exactly the event will kickstart, but of course, as you indicated earlier on, that it was supposed to have started at 10 o'clock already.
Aldrin, thank you so much for that update. We'll cross to you a little bit later to find out what is happening there. That's our reporter in Giyani, Aldrin Simpia, giving us the latest, and we'll keep you updated. You have to stay tuned on your favorite channel. This is channel 404. This is Newsroom. But before we went to the break, we have another picture of the day to share with you. This picture, by the way, sponsored by Roy African. It comes from Nutplo on Twitter and says that hashtag Mandela Palestine, a statue that represents the unity between hashtag Palestine and South Africa. There you have it with the former President Nelson Mandela in the background there. This is, of course, referring to the 6 million rand bronze statue, a gift from the city of Joburg that is said to be unveiled at the newly renamed Nelson Mandela Square in Ramallah. Now, after this, we'll probably go to the sports news, but let's first take a short break, and we'll be right back after that.
When pregnant with her first daughter, Relebogile knew that she wanted her daughter not to experience any identity issues. This is when she decided to look for toys that resembled Black as Beautiful.
I think for me, it was also just to get our girls to have some sense of identity, some sense of belonging.
I grew up having black and white dolls, and going to a multiracial school, I did not really see color. So for me, it's this thing of she should actually know what her true identity is.
Join your host, Puleng Mulebadze, on Bophelong every Friday at 17:30.
Ahika Manor produces abstract and symbolic works of art. He called his latest collection Vote with Ink, Not Blood.
Praying for peace, literally, in my own way.
The South African film titled Luister or Listen in Afrikaans tackles issues of race in the country.
I think that the end goal is the reformation of institutional culture, but how we get there is in fact through changing the language policy so that no student is forced to learn in Afrikaans.
It's fashion designers like Julia Mpoko who are starting to pay more attention to menswear and hope to make a mark in the fashion industry.
So regardless of whether you're African, European, there's certain styles that you like. So if an African man enjoys wearing simple, well-tailored pants, then yes, I guess.
Join Refulo Mula for that 1 hour weekly dose of arts and entertainment news every Friday at 9 p.m. on Trends.
know we are assembled here today and in other parts of the country to mark a historic day in the life of our nation. Wherever South Africans are across the globe, our hearts are beat as one as we renew our common loyalty to our country and our commitment to its future. The birth of our South African nation has, like any other, passed through a long and often painful process. The ultimate goal of a better life has yet to be realized. But if any one day marked the crossing of the divide from a post of conflict and division to the possibility of unity and peace, from inequality to equality, from a history of oppression to a future of freedom, it is 27th of April 1994. On this day, you, the people, took your destiny into your own hands. You decided that nothing would prevent you from exercising your hard-won right to elect a government of your choice. Your patience, your discipline, your single-minded purposefulness have become a legend throughout the world. You won this respect because you made the simple but profound statement that the time had come for the people to govern. You turned our diversity from a weakness to be exploited for selfish ends into a richness to be celebrated for the good of all. Today we meet to reaffirm that we are one people with one destiny, a destiny that we can now shape together from the sweat of our brows.
Right, welcome back. I'm Kendall Makhamat and I've got your sports on Newsroom. Top story is about local football, where the pressure is now on log leaders Mamelodi Sundowns to quickly put recent disappointments behind them. Vets close a gap on the Absa Premiership log leaders to 3 points after they secured a 2-0 win over SuperSport United. The team's 4 previous meetings heading into the clash conjured only 3 goals in 4 games. But the fast-paced story was evident. It would be a different story. The Clever Boys opened the scoring on the night through Burundi international Papi Fati in his first game back since November. Second-half substitute Jabulani Shongwe made an immediate impact off the bench as he raced to the goal line before setting up Fati for an easy finish in the 82nd minute.
Shongwe in off the bench finds Papi Fati, who has...
Right, now let's have a quick look at the results from all of the Absa Premiership action from last night, as well as a quick look ahead at what's happening tonight. Free State Stars losing 1-0 to Maritzburg United in the first match of the evening. Then later on, Bidvest Vets putting 2 good goals beyond SuperSport to catch up a little closer to Mamelodi Sundowns. Tonight, we've got Jomo Cosmos, who is struggling at the bottom of the log against Bloem Celtic at Orland Park in Potchefstroom. Black Aces, they host Golden Arrows at the Mbombela Stadium. Then the Atlic Wolfson Stadiums, where Platinum Stars visit Chippa United. Ajax Cape Town will have current log leaders Mamelodi Sundowns, who are sitting on 58 points. They'll be having that match at the Athlone Stadium in Cape Town. University of Pretoria, they host Kaizer Chiefs at the Tuks Stadium. The University of Pretoria are also faced with a bit of a relegation battle on their hands. Now we stay with football, but go through a little further afield, where Manchester City manager Manuel Pellegrini vowed that his team would play with no fear in the Champions League semi-final second leg against Real Madrid following a 0-0 first leg draw. Missing the injured Cristiano Ronaldo, Madrid created the better chances in Tuesday's game, but substitute Jesse saw a header hit the bar and City goalkeeper Joe Hart produced late saves to thwart Casemiro and Pepe. City, appearing in the first semi-final, did not work visiting goalkeeper Keylor Navas. This until Kevin De Bruyne found the target with a stoppage time free kick. But Pellegrini said that his side would show a greater cutting edge in next week's return leg in the Spanish capital. Atletico faced Bayern Munich in the first leg of the semi-final at the Vicente Calderón tonight. Now, relatives of the victims of Britain's Hillsborough football disaster were vindicated yesterday after an inquest blamed police failures for the unlawful killing of the supporters in 1989. The Hillsborough disaster was a human stampede which caused the deaths of 96 people and injured 766 others at a football match between Liverpool and Nottingham Forest at Hillsborough Stadium, Sheffield. And this happened on the 15th of April, 1989. The verdicts of unlawful killing, which could pave the way for prosecutions, were greeted with a mix of cheers and tears by relatives of the victims who sang the Liverpool Football Club anthem, "You Will Never Walk Alone," outside the court. They had campaigned for almost 3 decades to get justice for the 96, refusing to accept their deaths were accidental and accusing police of covering up exactly what happened. The victims, many young, died in an overcrowded, fenced-in enclosure at the Hillsborough Stadium in Sheffield at an FA Cup semi-final against Nottingham Forest 27 years ago. The disaster is still an open wound in Liverpool, which is one of the most passionate English cities when it comes to football. Now, families of the victims of the Hillsborough disaster have called on senior police officers from South Yorkshire Police to resign. This follows the results of an inquest into the stampede, which found that the match commander Chief Superintendent David Duckenfield was responsible for manslaughter by gross negligence due to a breach of his duty of care.
The finding by the jury that police were responsible for the deaths of the soccer fans in the Hillsborough Stadium crash comes after 2 years of hearings into Britain's worst sporting disaster. The families had campaigned for almost 3 decades to get justice for the so-called the 96, refusing to accept the deaths were accidental.
For most of the 27 years since the disaster, the South Yorkshire Police and its senior officers have tried to deflect blame from the disaster onto the supporters or any other convenient organisation. But today, the campaign to deny the truth and to deny justice finally came to an end.
The supporters have finally and definitively been vindicated. The police should never have advanced these allegations, and they should not have been left to the jury by the coroner. But at least the hijacking of the process to determine what went wrong has finally been put to rest.
The Chief Constable of South Yorkshire Police says on the day of the disaster they got policing catastrophically wrong and that his force unequivocally accepts the jury's findings. The disaster is still an open wound in Liverpool, with many calling for prosecutions following the verdict.
Now, former Masters winner Charles Schwartzel has become the second top South African golfer to pull out of the Olympic Games, this in Rio de Janeiro in August. Last week, former British Open champion Louis Oosthuizen announced that family and schedule issues prevented him from being considered for the Rio team. Team captain Gary Player announced Schwartzel's decision in a statement on Twitter on Monday. No reason was given for his withdrawal, but in the statement, Player expressed his sadness and disappointment at the player's decision. The world number 20 joins Oosthuizen, Australian Adam Scott and Fijian Vijay Singh as former major winners who will give Rio a miss. Golf returns to the Olympics for the first time this year since 1904. Now, the 4 sporting codes that were penalised by the Minister of Sports and Recreation, Fikile Mbalula, for failing to meet their transformation targets have only got themselves to blame. These were the state sentiments shared by Eminent Persons Group member Dr. Veli Basson. Cricket, rugby, athletics and netball were all banned from bidding to host any international events.
The EPG transformation report released by the minister found that the 4 sporting codes failed to meet their targets. These were the very same targets the federations had set for themselves 12 months ago. It's back to the drawing board for the federations. They have to work on their targets. How they do that is entirely on the affected parties. Failing to do so will see them penalized further.
The transformation charter has been in place for many years now, 4 or 5 years. So they've been working towards higher targets all the time. So they've set their own targets. If they didn't achieve their own targets, they have failed themselves.
Transformation is seen as a key strategy to sustain the sports landscape in the country. It's been noted that it cannot be addressed at a senior level. Focus has to be on school sports and underage competitions.
If that pipeline, supported by an active and accessible school sports system, is not alive and well, then transformation at the top cannot take place. So if a sporting code is not demographically transformed, they need to put into place solid underage international teams, solid participation opportunities in all schools, not only private schools and Model C schools. I mean all schools.
The intervention by the minister is not seen as government interference.
The time has arrived that the minister exercise his powers. Is it government interference if we want to get in line with our constitution to create access for the bulk of our population to not only participate in sport, but to participate also at the highest level? If you consider that interference, and the minister didn't say do this or do that, the minister just said, here are the transformation charter targets, make your own targets and achieve them.
The 4 federations will have an opportunity to meet with the minister to discuss the report. Lebang Dube, SABC News, Pretoria.
Now, this has become a bit of a hot potato, and let's see what you've got to say on the matter before we have a quick chat about Wimbledon.
A very effective programme is unpredictability. So, blanket testing like that is great because it's not expected. Testing somebody who hasn't been tested in a few months, twice in 3 days, is great because, again, that's unpredictable. And I think that's the fundamental part of a programme. That's why one has to be less forthcoming than one might wish to be about exactly what's going to happen. We just think that whether it's integrity issues or anti-doping issues, we feel that it's right that Wimbledon should enhance what is out there. We have a lot of confidence in the anti-doping programme, and it would be wrong to go into details about what it is that we're investing in. It just would be counterproductive, frankly.
Now, what you listened to just now was the Wimbledon tennis tournament organisers revealing a couple of things. One, that they're increasing the prize money by 6.4% from £1.88 million to a round sum of £2 million for each of the 2 champions this year. And all this while they plan to protect their reputation of the Wimbledon with making sure that they enhance anti-doping and anti-corruption measures. Now, having a look at the comments that you've made on transformation, that hot potato that we're currently dealing with in South Africa, Lunga Biela reckons people can complain all they want, but at the end of the day, transformation targets have not been met. Absolutely. Ex-Dr. Willie Basson said everybody signed on the dotted line, they agreed to it, they haven't met them. Kesitilwe says, but Mr. Mbalula is party to transformation failures most. His department had neglected coaching and sports facilities in townships, electioneering. Very interesting take on that one. Yeah, very interesting. Now, Kenny Mackenzie. Hello, Kenny Mackenzie. How is transformation in sports supposed to be successful if we fail to give township children top quality facilities? You know what, Kenny? We've got the likes of one of our former batting legends doing stuff in Khayelitsha, a backpack of dreams. The argument that blacks can't swim is redundant and misleading. Where are you going with this? It's stereotypes like this that impede transformation in sports. Really? That's an interesting take. Yeah, that's what I love about taking live comments on live TV. You get all sorts. And you get all sorts of different people saying what they have to say. Now, the International Cycling Union, the ICU, has banned Belgian cyclist Femke van den Driesche for 6 years and fined over $20,000 for technological fraud, also known as mechanical doping. She is found to have concealed electric motors in one of her bikes during checks at the Women's Under-23 Cyclocross World Championships in January of this year. Now, this ban is from the 11th of October last year to the 10th of October 2021. All right, well, that clip is not playing once again. We do hope that we'll be able to do another bulletin later where we can play the clip. We're going to take a short break and we'll come back for more news.
News Today keeps you informed with news locally and around the world.
When Judge John Hlophe challenged the Supreme Court of Appeal when it sent the matter back and said that there must be an inquiry set up.
We unpack business news.
There's an increase in general inflation in the country.
We give you up-to-date news of the day.
The drugs were seized at several locations in Sydney, including a shipping container sent from Hong Kong. Police saying it's the largest haul of illicit drugs in 2 years.
We round up sports news.
Kotata, tell me about the legacy that you would like to build and be remembered for.
Trying to get my foundation running, which is going to focus on, all the sport, doesn't matter disability or able body. So, I'm passionate about sports.
Stay informed every Monday to Friday from 3 to 5:30 p.m. CAT. SABC News.
Now, in a short while, we'll cross to the main activities happening in Giani, but meanwhile, the Eastern Cape is holding their Freedom Day celebrations at the 100-year-old Fort Hare University. Now, Fort Hare played a significant role in the liberation of the country, as it is the alma mater to some of the legends of our struggle. Premier of the Eastern Cape, Phumula Masualle, is to deliver the keynote speech. Our reporter Zolani Moya is at the event at Fort Hare University. Very good morning to you. It seems we haven't got Kolani yet. We'll see if we can get him in a short while. Let's take a quick break and we'll be back right after that.
A very good afternoon. You're watching the Midday Report. Lunchtime news amplified.
But for now, this is what they call home. Their hope to shift to higher ground seems to be against the tide.
Midday Report provides you with more than just news stories.
I just want Port Elizabeth to know that they own a world-class theatre.
Good afternoon. You're with the news at 1 in the headlines.
Very good afternoon to you. This is News Live. I'm Natasha Thorpe. Let's take a quick look at what's coming up in your headlines.
Good afternoon and welcome to A View from the House.
For all things news, tune in to Midday Report weekdays at 12 noon only on the SABC News channel.
They are basically arresting him, continue to arrest him on behalf of the apartheid government.
We are dealing with effects. We are not dealing with the causes. And for as long as we deal with effects, we are never going to solve this problem.
What do these people need in prison? Why are they there? The PAC, as Dr. Peku is saying, has been seeking answers, and they're not coming.
What kind of answers are you getting?
I really think I've answered that question.
I think it's a difficult question. I don't have an answer for it. How was it possible
that they could operate with such impunity.
The only thing you want is closure.
The only thing we want is closure. And unfortunately, I don't really have sympathy for the idea that if you're too old, you shouldn't stand trial.
That's Rights and Recourse with Dumile Mateza, every Sunday at 2 p.m. Central African Time, only on the SABC News Channel.
One other person has been shot dead and another is in a critical condition in hospital.
The CRL has laid charges against controversial televangelist Paseka Mutsoneng.
More than 1.3 million South Africans have been added in the past two registration weekends.
The International Monetary Fund warns that policy uncertainty could dampen economic growth in South Africa.
And all eyes are on the new Bok coach, Alistair Coetzee. He's challenged to keep everyone in the country happy.
News Today keeps you informed with news locally and around the world.
When Judge John Hlophe challenged the Supreme Court of Appeal when it sent the matter back and said that there must be an inquiry set up.
We unpack business news.
There's an increase in general inflation in the country.
We give you up-to-date news of the day.
The drugs were seized at several locations in Sydney, including a shipping container sent from Hong Kong. Police say it's the largest haul of illicit drugs in 2 years.
We round up sports news.
Kotata, tell me about the legacy that you would like to build and be remembered for.
Trying to get my foundation running, which is going to focus on, all the sport, doesn't matter disability or able body. So, I'm passionate about sports.
Stay informed every Monday to Friday from 3 to 5:30 p.m. CAT. SABC News.
Now, as you know, the main event is happening in Gianni. We'll cross there in a short while, but meanwhile, the Eastern Cape is holding their Freedom Day celebrations at the 100-year-old Fort Hare University. Let's remind you that Fort Hare played a significant role in the liberation struggle of our country, as it is the alma mater to some of the legends of our struggle. The Premier of Eastern Cape, Phumulo Masualle, is to deliver the keynote speech. Our reporter, Sulani Moya, is at the event at Fort Hare University.
Yes, we are indeed crossing live here at Fort Hare University, situated in Alice. Of course, our broadcast stewards such as Dr. Nelson Mandela, Z.K. Matthews and Oliver Tam are some of the leaders that have started here on this historic university. And of course, April being declared as the Freedom Month by government. A number of activities have been planned, to celebrate the milestone that Fort Hare University has planned. But with me here, I have the Eastern Cape Premier Phumulo Masualle, who's going to tell us more. Premier Masualle, just tell us, obviously 100 years, no child's play, and this university is going strong, and particularly towards the younger generation.
Well, thank you very much. We have decided to situate our celebration of Freedom Day today here at the University of Fort Hare, an event that coincides with the centenary celebrations of the University of Fort Hare. Year-long program. We have chosen then to have our Freedom Day celebrations here to also mark this historic achievement of this institution, also to appreciate and continue to celebrate its relevance in the freedom we are experiencing, the contribution the university has made. We're working very well with this institution as one of the premier institutions that this province has produced. So we found it fitting to come and celebrate freedom here today.
Are there any plans by government just to make sure that this university lives up to its name?
Well, we're working with the university, strengthening its footprint in terms of programs that it is offering. And indeed, every day we are met with new initiatives that make the institution even more relevant in terms of the demands of the current period, the demands of entrenching, advancing the democratic breakthrough. This university is playing a very critical role in that regard. Yes, we are working with the university, even supporting students with some of their difficulties, challenges in terms of tuition and other things. We're working with the institution to ensure that many of our children are able to access higher education. The university is indeed working well in that regard.
Thank you very much, Premier. That was Premier Phumulo Masualle. As you see behind me, there's a lot of activities going on. Freedom March, people are embarking on various activities. But to tell us more, I've got the VC of the institution, Dr. Mvuyo Tom. Dr. Tom, just tell us about the events that the university has planned in order to celebrate the milestone.
The university has got a year-long plan which started on the 8th of February and will culminate in the 8th of February 2017. There are lots of activities that are planned during the course of this year, and one of them is taking place here today, which has been planned together with the government. The government has decided, that is the provincial government, to celebrate the 22nd year of our democracy at the University of Fort Hare today. And we had a marathon, a half marathon, 22 kilometers, which coincides with that 22 years. Of course, there's a big coincidence between the University of Fort Hare and the freedom of South Africa, and also the freedom of other states in the African continent, because this university produced many of the leaders who led the revolutions and the decolonization of the countries in Africa. So during the course of the year, we'll be having most of the activities celebrated by government. June 16 will be celebrated here. And in July, the Nelson Mandela month will be celebrating here, Heritage Month, and also Oliver Tambo will be celebrated in October with the launch of the history of a book on the history of the University of Fort Hare, which will take place in November. There are also academic conferences that will take place where international scholars will be coming to the University of Fort Hare to debate issues about transformation of higher education, issues about the contribution of education or universities in the development of cities.
That was Dr. Mvuyo Tom, who is the Vice Chancellor of the university, basically telling us, giving us a general overview of the plans that the university has planned. Of course, the role that the university has played in the struggle against the oppression. Well, that is what I have here on this side of town. Back to you in Auckland Park.
It's the main event at Gianni in Limpopo, where the main celebrations for Freedom Day is happening. Let's cross there live.
Well, a very good morning and welcome indeed to the Gianni Stadium, where the proceedings are about to get underway. We're expecting the ceremonial program to start any minute from now, as soon as the president walks in, takes the salute from the army, whereafter the formal program begins. Well, the formal program itself is going to take about 1.5 hours. We are told, but of course I'm not alone, and to tell us more about what to expect here at Gianni Stadium, I am of course with my colleagues, starting with Aldrin St. Pierre.
Well, yes, good morning. We're coming live to you from the Gianni Stadium here in Limpopo. And tell you what, just looking at the sheer number of people that have made their way here, there's quite a level of excitement. And earlier on, we did indicate that it started to drizzle, it started to rain. And now the skies have all of a sudden opened up. And as you indicated, that as soon as the president walks in, of course, there's now underway is the ceremonial guard of honor. And as soon after the president makes his salute, there will also be the 21-gun salute. And after that the official event will be underway, will take place. And I'm also joined here by Mike Marenga. Mike, you from actually Giyani. Can you just basically tell us more about the area?
Thank you, Alvin. Look, it's not, Giyani is not like this. Usually during this time of the year, we expect Giyani to be warm, even though we're heading towards winter. But like you said earlier on, there was a scrum here. People were pushing each other to get a shade. Organizers were sent into a panic mode because they didn't know what will happen if the rain will continue or subside. Yeah, having said that, from where we are standing, Alvin, you have seen we still have hundreds of people that are still flocking into the stadium. You can see from the drop-off where we are, they are coming in their numbers. But briefly about this place, Alvin, before I come to you, you'll remember that when President Zuma took to office in 2009, he identified Giyani for the rural development project at the village called Uyeshe. It's a distance of about 20 kilometers in the northeastern side of Giyani. President Zuma has been here several times, and here we come again. The Freedom Day celebration for the very first time, Alvin, it will be celebrated outside Pretoria. Maybe that's the reason why the weather decided to change. We're in a Pretoria mode, the Pretoria weather. But I've seen you behind you. There are a lot of generals that are here, and you'll be talking to one in a very short space of time. But still on the Giyani matter, still on the Pretoria matter, the taking of this Freedom Day into other provinces, what impact will it have?
Well, it's certainly quite interesting looking at changing the venue of having this commemoration to another province. And quite interesting is just taking note of, I think, what government has probably sat down and look at what works and what doesn't work. If you look, for instance, at the State of the Nation address. The State of the Nation address used to be during the day, but now it's in the evening. It has more viewership than before. So I guess this is where government has sat down and said that, listen, holding this event only in Pretoria is not working. And as you've indicated, that we are rather in the most safest place. I was saying to a colleague earlier on that the tedious security detail around this place, as well as walking through the security checks as well, it's quite tedious. And we will be joined by General Mabanga from the South African National Defence Force just to talk us through the event that will be taking place, as well as that ceremony, the initial ceremony before the formal event, with regards to what the soldiers or the SANDF members will be doing before the formal event takes underway. Right now, let's go back to Vuyo Mvoko.
Well, thanks very much, Aldrin. Well, just to fill in, today's theme, this year's theme, I should say, is Together Building Better Communities. Local government is everybody's business. Well, not surprised given that this is the year in which we are scheduled on the 3rd of August to hold those all-important local government elections. And just going through, as we're preparing for this day, just going through some of the data that has been coming from government, taking stock of what has been happening, what has happened since 1994, what the government has done, and of course what it still hopes to do given the programs that are underway. Well, President Jacob Zuma will be the one, of course, taking stock of that, filling the nation in, so to speak, just to give us a sense of where we are as a nation, what has been happening over the past 22 years, and perhaps give an indication as the people who are running the country, what is it that is topmost in their minds? What are the things that we're supposed to be doing? What are the things that we are supposed to care about as a nation, given everything that is happening, given the things that are yet to happen? All of that and more, we hope to hear from President Jacob Zuma when he takes to the podium a little later on to give that keynote address. We'll do so. Stay tuned as we will be updating you and we'll be bringing you live that speech by President Jacob Zuma, but everything else that will be happening before then. As I said, the program is going to be a little bit shorter than usual, which I'm sure will be welcome to many people, given that people want to see also the music. They want to see the cultural activities that are taking place. To take you through the program very briefly, the formal program, the formal part of the program, that is as soon as the ceremonial part finishes, the premier of this province will welcome the president and the rest of the guests, whereafter the Minister of Arts and Culture, Minister Natim Tetwa, will introduce the president. The president will then take to the podium and give that all-important speech about what it is that he and his government think are the most important things that South Africans should be thinking about, the important things that South Africans should be seeing, and the important things that South Africans should be preparing for as we move forward. What assurances is the government prepared to give to the people of South Africa about whatever concerns that the people may have, but also what is it that we should be celebrating, lest we forget that over the past 22 years a lot of work has indeed been done, but with regard to the things that have not yet been done, when will they be done, how will they be done, and what will be the roles that each and every one of us will have to play. Well, let's go back to Aldrin St-Pierre.
Well, yes, people are still making their way here to the Giyani Stadium. What I can tell you right now is there is a scrum right in front of the grandstands where we are standing at the moment as people continue to make their way to Giyani Stadium. I've checked on the net, for instance. They say that this stadium is a 20,000-seater stadium. There is an overflow area that has been set up. There's a marquee that has been set up, but it seems though people want to be here in front of the podium as probably as close as possible to the president, to get a glimpse of the president as he makes his way to the pitch, and when the event will certainly start off. As you just heard there, cheers, and the president has obviously arrived here at the stadium, but the official event hasn't started as yet. Right now I'm joined by a Minister of Health, Aaron Mutwale. It is also indicated that there is a level of concern, Minister, with regards to the numbers of people who are still making their way into the stadium.
Yes, I am very concerned and scared. This is a very small stadium. The crowds here are completely overwhelming. And I'm just worried about the possibility of a stampede here. And we might have to be very active to do something to avoid it. It's packed and people are still coming in.
Have you been able to speak to the organizers at this point?
No. Well, I've spoken to the Minister of Police. He's running around to try and do something. I'm sure they didn't expect such huge crowds in a stadium like this.
Well, I was actually saying that earlier on, while also making our way here to the stadium, that we saw various buses at different filling stations still making their way. And if you look far on our far right, there are people who are still making their way to the stadium. And there are those who are probably refusing to use the overflow area.
Yes, absolutely. That's why I'm worried. I'm just saying the crowd is extremely overwhelming, and if we don't do something very quick, we might end up with something we didn't expect. It's worrisome, extremely worrisome.
Well, Minister, let's just quickly go back to the purpose that we are here to celebrate today, to celebrate Freedom Day, the 27th of April. I want you to take us back to that moment, that first moment when you made your first ballot in a non-racial South Africa.
April 27, 1994, I woke up at 4 o'clock. I woke up at 4 o'clock to move around the village, to mobilize people, to make sure that the elections are going to happen. I actually couldn't sleep because I was very anxious whether that election is really going to happen, whether things will go right, what the end of the day will bring, because it was like South Africa is changing overnight into something new that we have never seen. So anxiety had to come in, and that's why I woke up at 4.
Well, thank you very much, Minister. Well, that is the Minister of Health, Aaron Mutwale, speaking to us then. As indicated, there is a concern around the stampede, but the presidential motorcade has arrived here at Giyani Stadium.
Well, welcome once again, especially to the viewers of SABC2. We're coming to you live from the Giani Stadium in the province of Limpopo, and that is where the official celebrations of Freedom Day are about to get underway. President Jacob Zuma has just come through, which means that the ceremonial part of this program is about to get underway, and that is when there will be a gun salute, and the president will be taking that salute. Shortly thereafter, the formal program will begin, and that is when President Jacob Zuma will be giving a keynote address to talk to the nation about what for the government will be the should be the main issues and main concerns 22 years down the line. What are the things that we should be preoccupied with, and if we have any fears, why do we have such fears, and how do we deal with them? And if there are programs coming up to address those concerns and whatever other issues that people may have, what are those programs and how will those programs unfold? That and more is what we expect when the president will give that all-important keynote address in a little while. But of course, it was raining a little earlier, people fearing that maybe things won't go as well as the people who are here, the organizers and everyone may have wished, but all of that seems to be gone now. There's a bit of a sun, and it's nice and warm here at the Giani Stadium. Well, I'm going to hand over once again to my colleague Alvin Sampier.
Well, we are just indicating there one issue that you touched on, the issue around trust, and looking back at the reconciliation barometer of 2015, indicating that there's about 67% of the population who don't trust people from other races. And I guess that barometer comes at a time as well when the country is trying to deal with the issues of social cohesion, as well as ensuring that the country lives in peace and harmony. If you look at all the racial tensions that have started to simmer on social media. Well, people are still making their way to the Giani Stadium here in Limpopo. And as we spoke earlier on to the Minister of Health, Aaron Motsoaledi, his biggest concern is there might be a stampede. He said something might happen, something that they did not anticipate as people are making their way here. There's still a scrum right at the grandstands where we are standing at the moment. And if you look at the other side, there is an overflow area that has been set up, but people are not going to that overflow area. And right now they are rejoicing as the president makes his way to the podium where he will be receiving the gun salute. Right now I'm joined by my colleague Mike Marenga. And Mike, you are joined actually by the general from the SANDF.
It's indeed true, Alvin. But look, the security matter that you were talking about, it's worrying. When you were speaking now, the Minister of Police just came here to check at the crowd to see what is happening, because right on our right hand side there is a scrum, and we don't know what will happen, because when the president arrived there was rapture. People have started singing as a way of welcoming him. But to understand what will happen as soon as everything starts, let us bring the general to talk to us. General Mabanga, what is going to happen now that the president has arrived? Can you please take us through?
Now what is going to happen, since the President of the Republic of South Africa and the Commander-in-Chief of the South African National Defence Force has arrived, he's going to be led to the podium by the aide-de-camp. Those are officials from the South African National Defence Force. Then when he gets into the podium, then he will be received by the National Ceremonial Guards, who have done what we call a guard of honor. Then on arrival at the podium, he will take salute from the National Ceremonial Guards, which will then be followed immediately by the playing of the national anthem. Concurrently with that, it will also be the sounding of the 21 gun salute in honor of the President, as well as the fly past. Then that will constitute the national ceremonial activities of the South African National Defence Force when it comes to events like this.
Look, between 8 and 10 o'clock, there was entertainment, but immediately after that, when the motorcade arrived, Defence Force took over. For how long will you be in charge of this process?
well, will be in charge of this process until the end of the formal opening of the event. And thereafter, other activities or entities will take over.
Just briefly tell us, I see during the parade we've got people in different uniforms. Just take us through as to what are those people, in which ranks are they, or units, if I may put it that way.
Well, when we look at them, the South African National Defence Force is comprised of 4 services. That is the South African Army, the South African South African Army, South African Air Force, the South African Navy, and the South African Military Health Service. And beyond that, we have what we call the National Ceremonial Guards, whose responsibility is to perform national ceremonial duties like this. So on parade in green, we have the members of the National Security Ceremonial Guard. At the back, it is also the National Ceremonial Band.
Yeah, we have seen them coming in numbers, and some of them are here. What is going to happen? Are you going down to meet the president, or the people who are down on the ground are enough?
The people who are down, they are enough. They've got delegated powers to receive the president in as far as the ceremonial event is concerned. Above here, you have the Chief of the South African National Defence Force, Chief of Staff of the South African National Defence Force, Chief of Joint Operations Division, Chief of the Army, Chief of the Air Force, Chief of the Navy.
Thank you. That was General Mabanga giving us a brief of the people who are here and as to what is going to happen as soon as the president makes his way into the pitch. He has indicated that we've got people from the Navy, we've got people from the Army who are here, who will be assisting in the process. Let's go to the podium to see what is happening now, because the president is ready and waiting.
concludes the fly past. The National Ceremonial Guard Band will now entertain us.
But if you've just joined us, you're watching a live broadcast. We're coming to you from Giyani Stadium in the province of Limpopo, and that is where the official celebrations of Freedom Day have just gotten underway. Right now, it's the ceremonial program.
Okay, well, we continue with our coverage of the National Day of Celebration. It's the 27th of April. We're celebrating Freedom Day, and we are at the Giyani Stadium in Limpopo, as was indicated earlier on. And the ceremonial guard of honor is still underway. And right now, I'm joined again by General Mabanga from the South African National Defence Force, just to speak us through to what's currently underway. General, thank you again for joining us. Let's start off with what's currently happening. We see the band on the pitch at the moment. We also have the president sitting on the podium as he observes.
Yes, what is currently happening within the South African National Defence Force, we have the bands, that is like this one that we have now on the stage, that is the National Ceremonial Guard Band. It's going to just play for entertainment, just to entertain the crowd and entertain and perform for the president. The president is watching, sitting down, and then conclusion of the entertainment part, then we will again play the salute, that is the general salute for the president. Then that will mark the end of the ceremonial part of the South African National Defence Force in this event.
What's the significance of when we have these national days of commemoration, where you have the president come in and you have the South African National Defence Force also playing a role?
Well, the South African National Defence Force is an element of state and an instrument of government. It has got that ceremonial part, which is the event or the participation of the Defence Force dates way back to time immemorial, whereby the kings or the heads of particular community will have their amabuto, or they will have their amabuto, or the military elements coming just to bring that authority or bring that sense of security amongst the community and amongst the head of that community or the head of government. So it's a participation or an event that dates way back, which we know that when community were established, they were established and then there will be a security element of that community. So when there's an event for that community, those security elements will be present. Then in this instant, as a government, this is a national ceremonial event which the South African National Defence Force has got that ceremonial part to play, which signifies the same events, because it is presided by the President, who's also the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. So the Armed Forces have to be there to play their ceremonial part.
I was actually about to say that indeed he is the Commander-in-Chief of the South African National Defence Force. And just a quick one, you know, normally when we speak about the military, normally when we speak about the Defence Force, the first thing that comes to mind is arms, it's armaments and so forth. But here we see a different side to the Army and to the South African Defence Force.
Definitely, that's what we are bringing in now. It's the first time that we are doing it, but it is part of the ceremonial activities. Is that the Defence Force is not comprised of people who are carrying guns or weapons or only responsible for patrolling or doing border guards. There are a lot of events, careers, professions within the Defence Force. Hence, I'm also saying that we have bands that are responsible to provide these recreational programs or entertainment programs. There are various bands that we have in the Defence Force, as well as various activities that we do have, in as much as different careers and professions.
Well, looking at the sheer number of people who have their phones out at the moment and capturing this moment, it's quite interesting seeing how they're enjoying this, as well as the officials who are standing right behind you. There was actually somebody dancing, and I was about to ask you whether you can dance.
I can dance, but I'm not allowed to dance in uniform. Although those that are given that responsibility, like the bands, they are allowed to entertain us and other people with dance and music and any other thing.
Okay, let's just quickly speak again about the ceremonial guard that's currently underway. They are bringing us a tune, and we're coming live to you from the Giyani Stadium in Limpopo, where the official Freedom Day celebrations are currently underway. And as I've indicated earlier on, that I'm joined by General Mabanga, who is from the South African National Defence Force. General, just quickly again, just a basic touch on the ceremonial guard of honor and having the President sitting there.
Yes, once again, you know that the President will be seated in the podium, which is the seat of authority. And then the Defence Force will come and give the guard of honor, which is done at this stage with those ladies and gentlemen, or men and women in uniform, in green uniform. They are from the National Ceremonial Guard. And then the band that is responsible for entertainment as well as the marching music is the National Ceremonial Band as well. So whilst they've concluded showing what they can to the Commander-in-Chief as well as the nation at large, then they will withdraw.
Well, let's go straight to the pitch where the ceremonial guard of honor is still entertaining the crowds here at the Giyani Stadium, as well as President Jacob Zuma, who's observing.
in spectacular success. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the final compliments.
Well, we've just seen the end of the ceremonial program. The President Jacob Zuma, making his way to the main podium now, from where he will deliver his keynote address a little later on. The program being very short and sweet. It's going to start with the opening and welcoming remarks by the Premier of the province, Premier Matabata. The Minister of Arts and Culture is going to introduce the President, whereafter the President will give that all-important keynote address. Short and sweet and to the point. By 12:30 in terms of this formal program, this part of the program should have come to an end. An entertainment program should start.
Happy Freedom Day, happy! Happy Freedom Day, happy! Togana! Da! Abshin!
Union Building is in Giyani Stadium today. Let us welcome the President of the Republic of South Africa, President Zuma. Halala, President Zuma, halala. Halala, South Africa, halala. Halala, Limpopo, halala. Halala, Mopani, halala. Halala, Pulukwane, halala. Halala, Bembe, halala. Thank you very much. We are going to start with our formal program in welcoming all of you here and our main speaker, President Zuma, would like, because the band has led us singing the national anthem, we will ask every one of us here in the stadium to stand up as we ask all of you, with my program director, MEC, to stand up and observe a moment of silence. Could we please rise? In doing so, remembering those who sacrificed for our freedom, could we all observe this moment of silence? Thank you. Halala, South Africa, halala. Halala, Limpopo, halala. Halala, Gauteng, halala. Halala, Northwest, halala. Halala, Mpumalanga, halala. Halala, Western Cape, halala. Halala, Eastern Cape, halala. Halala, Northern Cape, halala. Halala, KwaZulu-Natal, halala. Halala, Kiani, halala. Halala, Kiani Stadium, halala. Halala, all of you in Giyani, halala. Halala, our Freedom Day, halala. Long live President Zuma, long live. Long live Msholozi, long live. Long live Nxamalala, long live. Let me start by acknowledging our leaders here with us. We have the President of the Republic of South Africa, President Zuma. He's here with us. We will introduce him properly when the time comes. We have the Deputy President of the Republic of South Africa, Deputy President Ramaphosa, is here with us. With us here, we have Kosikhulu Mpepu with us. He's here with us. We have Kosi Mpafudi
and all other traditional leaders. In our midst, we have the Premier of Limpopo, Premier Mathabata. He's here. We'll see him shortly. We have our district mayor of Mopani. She's here herself. She's going to address us later on. And my co-program director, as I said, MEC Ndalane is with us here. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow South Africans, comrades and friends, this is a big day. This is a successful Freedom Day. Can we give ourselves a round of applause? I didn't hear that round of applause. Can you give yourselves a round of applause, please? Say halala to you, halala. Say halala to yourselves, halala. Having introduced who's here with us, I must also introduce to you the sign language interpreters, Augustine Letlalo and Pearl Mbolekwa. And you must observe they are really interpreting correctly. I'm going to give my co-program director to take the program, and we'll hear from her.
Thanks very much, Minister. Abshen banunkwenu, minjani, inkomo ikhensile, mitayikhomela khwayere ya Giyane ayingemiendleli because already basihlamserile ninge he yimbeleli because inge he double national anthem timbiri. We shall now call upon our Premier, Mr. Stan Mathabata, to come and give us their welcome remarks. Premier, the stage is yours. And Banba Giyani Choir, mikomberi wa ku yimbelela mara ku nga ri leya national anthem. Tanani na risimu rin'wanyani ku at least. Leri ri nghensaku premier wa hina. Atlisani. Milekfeleni. mi yimisile mu premier wa hina ba voneni va karhi va ta mikulungwane.
Ya Cancer Program Director Amanza Matimba Manda Mata Krachten all power. Thank you. Kia leboga ya Kenza Roleboha Gamanda. Program directors, the President of the Republic of South Africa, Your Excellency Jacob Zuma, Deputy President of the Republic of South Africa, Honorable Cyril Ramaphosa, ministers present here, Bo Kosikulu, Bo Tobela Mpepu, Ramabulana, Ralova, Karilovin Batubashu, da. Kariluven Batubashu. Tihosi Tamina Maroshiaka Alofa Kamoga members of parliament and the members of the provincial legislature present here, executive mayors and mayors present here, thank you, comrades. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Can we all settle down? Ari dulem fase kamukare nari chelecheng. Batho babaleng kamukare ga stadium. Batho kamo kabaleleng kamukare ga stadium. Ari dulem fase. Gore le ba kwa morago ba tle ba kgone go bona. Arduleng fase magageshu ai tsamene hase. Let us all sit down so that those behind us can be able to see and gain visibility of what is happening in front here. Veterans and stalwarts of our struggle for freedom, the Chief of the Defense Force and the Armed Forces, the leadership of the South African Police Services, the leadership of various religious formations present here, Dingaka, Charena, Kamoka, Chedilofa, Honorable President, Mangaka Arena Arobechifa Baleche ba rapella ba gaya filole gore dilo ka moka di tle di sepele gabotse mamotlaleng. Ladies and gentlemen, as the people of Limpopo, we count a rare honor and privilege on our part to be afforded an opportunity to host the people of South Africa on such a very special day. Baresho esale meletlo ye ya go celebrate a Freedom Day e thoma since 1994 ke mathomo ngwago re bona moletlo o ntshiwa out of Pretoria o tlishiwa mo provinceng e leng gore ke ya province e tletseng dinagamagae go swana le ya rena, province e leng gore e tletse khutšo le lethabo go swana le ya rena. Re rata gore jwale ka batho ba Limpopo re go leboge President for bringing this event here. We are indeed humbled. We accept the gesture with open arms to be the home of the being the home of the second president of the ruling party, the African National Congress, Sefako Makgatho. We would want to welcome the leadership of this country and say to you, you are in the province of legend. You are in the province that produced the freedom fighters who distinguished themselves in the struggle for liberation. Amongst them, we count people like Fleck Bishielo. We count people like Lawrence Pukanuka, Mark Chope, Peter Nchabeleng, Alpheus Maliva, Nelson Diale, Collins Chabani, Norman Mashabani, Peter Mkaba, and many others. You are celebrating this day in this province that gave birth to Khoshiradi Madinore of the Bapedi Kingdom, and Charlotte Mateke, who amongst others are counted as a rare breed of the brave women who influenced and led the 1956 Women's March that changed the course of the liberation struggle in our country. We proudly welcome you to the home of great warrior kings who fought against oppression and colonialism. Warrior kings like Sekukune, Makado, and Gugunyani. Program Director, we must therefore, as we celebrate this freedom, never forget all these and many other heroes and heroines of the struggle for freedom in our country. The befitting tribute we can pay to them is not to dishonor the cause of freedom. We must take this responsibility and celebrate this freedom with honor and dignity. As the former president of the African National Congress once said, Comrade Oliver Tambo once said, and I quote, "We must break down the barriers of division and create a country where there will be neither whites nor blacks, but just South Africans free and united in diversity. Ladies and gentlemen, Program Director, I have got no doubt that as people are entering here, as people are coming into this stadium, as people are filling this stadium as you do, all of you are here to celebrate. All of you are here to honor those who died for this freedom. As the province of Limpopo, we want to say we also want to be counted amongst those who are celebrating this freedom with honor. Because just like any other person who's enjoying the fruits of this freedom, we in Limpopo are also doing the same. Re a iteboga, re a leleboga ka moka bahlabanedi ba ileng gore ba ilwetse ntwa e ya tokologo. Tokologo ye, we want to say we will always honor it and cherish it. We will always defend it with everything within our means and ensure that at the end of the day, this South Africa, our country, is a well-celebrated country in the world of nations. And ensure that this, our province, Limpopo, is counted amongst all those provinces who are the best that this democracy has ever produced. It is now my pleasure and honor to welcome all of you in our province, the province of Limpopo, and say to you, let us celebrate this freedom because we all deserve it. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Premier of Limpopo, Premier Matabate, for welcoming all of us. We indeed feel at home. "22 years of freedom and democracy. Freedom which people laid their lives for. Freedom which we should not take for granted at any time. 20 years of the Constitution of South Africa. This Constitution is in safe hands in the ruling party, the African National Congress. Anyone who says the Constitution is under threat is mistaken. It is this Constitution which prescribes that the government of the day should be elected in every after 5 years. President Zuma and his government have been elected in 2014, and they are expected to bow out and go and renew the mandate in 2019. It is going to be so. The president is not going to be removed by anybody from office. The Constitution of the Republic of South Africa dictates that he must do his duty for the next 5 years, and that's what is going to happen in South Africa. The people today who want to take shortcuts, who get defeated in the ballot box and want to take shortcuts of vote of no confidence are not going to succeed. Siyakuba. We will continue. All of them must thank the African National Congress and the Constitution that today they are able to march and express their views. It is their right. We respect their right, but we respect the Constitution. We are going to take this country forward. President Zuma is going to come to the podium here. The president who is in charge of the country, who is running the country until the end of the term. He's going to talk to us now. There are no some mafigizolos who are going to tell the electorate what to do. We know what to do. Those Mickey Mouse political parties must know that it's only one governing party in South Africa. It's African National Congress. There is no co-governance in South Africa. Let us reflect 22 years of our democracy by listening to the man in charge of this country, President Zuma, talking to us, giving us the marching orders. Your Excellency, President Zuma, people are listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, co-directors of the program. Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa, His Majesty King TP Mpepu Ramapulana, Tobele Bapudi, senior traditional leader who is with us here, ministers and deputy ministers of the Republic, Premier of Limpopo and his Provincial Executive Council, members of the national and provincial legislatures, members of the national and the provincial houses of traditional leaders, the traditional leaders who are with us here, and the religious leaders, Executive Mayor of Mopopane, District Municipality Executive Mayor of the Greater Giyani Local Municipality, heads of Chapter 9 institutions, members of the Diplomatic Corps, ladies and gentlemen, fellow South Africans, we greet you all on this important day in our history. Tobela, Abshen, Demashoroni. Sanibonani. Thank you very much indeed. Today marks exactly 22 years since our people of all national groups went out in their millions to vote for the very first time in the free and fair democratic elections. This day, in 1994, not only marked the end of the tyranny of apartheid, it also symbolized the triumph of good over evil. Today, we are celebrating the heroic struggles waged by gallant men and women who understood that freedom could not be given to them as a gift. They knew that it had to be relentlessly fought for and achieved. Today, we also pay tribute to our heroes and heroines who passed away during this month of April, such as former ANC President Oliver Tambo, our cadre and leader Chris Hani, our cadre of MK Solomon Mahlangu. Their lives and untold sacrifices remain and remind us that our freedom was not free and that it came at a price and great cost, including life itself. On this day, we also think of all the people of South Africa who suffered in various ways during the apartheid era and before. Many were brutally murdered, imprisoned, and tortured. Millions of our people suffered immense poverty and deprivation through the system of institutionalized racism, which rendered black people to be trespassers in the land of their birth and not worthy of any rights. Thousands were dehumanized in various ways. It was painful, cruel system which was correctly described as a crime against humanity by the United Nations. The victory of our people in 1994 through selfless struggle, assisted by freedom-loving people across the world, ended the centuries-long repression in our country. It set our nation on a path towards reconciliation, freedom, justice, peace, democracy, equality, and indeed an entrenched, strong culture of fundamental human rights and liberties. In 1994, led by the President Mandela, we began building a united democratic, non-racial, non-sexist, and prosperous South Africa. All policy instruments that have been introduced since 1994 are designed to achieve that vision of a better life for all, especially the poor and the working class. Work has continued since 1994 to improve the living conditions of the people, to undo the legacy of exclusion and neglect. Many communities and households were without electricity, water, roads, transport, clinics, providing quality health care or state-of-the-art schools. The democratic government has since 1994 spent each year delivering such services. Millions of our people now have access to these services. The community of Giyani, our host today, and thank you, Giyani, for hosting us this important day. Know too well the hardship of not having water, like many communities around the country where the democratic government is busy making a difference. In 2009, we declared the Giyani area a disaster zone and subsequently adopted it into the presidential Siyahlola program to redress the critical shortage of water. Government, through the Department of Water and Sanitation, issued an emergency directive in August 2014 to Lepelle Northern Water to regularize water and sanitation provision in the Bopane district. I'm very happy to report back today the completion of a number of projects. These are the completion of groundwater augmentation of 16 priority villages and that of Kesani Hospital. Also completed is the building of the Giyani wastewater treatment works and the refurbishment of the Giyani wastewater treatment plant. Some of the milestones in the project to date include the revitalizing of 154 boreholes with package plants to ensure the water becomes fit for human consumption. Furthermore, there is construction of a 35 megaliters reservoir that will be completed in June 2017. Operations and maintenance support has also taken place to repair about 270 kilometers of existing lines, 9 pump stations, and 14 reservoirs. At the moment, all 55 villages here in Giyani have access to bulk water supply due to the interventions. To further promote water supply in Limpopo province, we have the Mogalekwena bulk water supply projects within the Waterberg district municipality that will be implemented in the current financial year. The project aims to deliver water to Mokopane town and villages to the immediate north of Mokopane town. 24,000 people and mines in the surrounding area will benefit from the project. Compatriots, as you are aware, the country is gripped by the negative effects of the current drought. As government, we continue to look for new sources of water. With some of our provinces having been declared disaster areas, we have to take extraordinary efforts to bring relief to our people. Water tankering, water restrictions, and finding new sources of water, especially by exploiting underground sources, are some of the efforts employed to reduce communities' water challenges. The current low dam levels, with an expected dry winter season, demand of everyone to be part of the national water conservation and demand efforts. We must continue to save water. We have no choice. The situation is serious and is affecting both households and our farming communities, who are supposed to ensure food security in our country. Compatriots, while services are extended to some communities, many others are still waiting because the backlog resulting from apartheid exclusion is extensive. We assure you that we shall not rest as the democratic government until all households in our country live in dignity and obtain basic services. We will continue to work with all communities towards this end, together building better communities and improving the functioning of municipalities so that they can better provide these services to the people. Remember that local government is everybody's business. So we have to work together to bring about a better life for all. Compatriots, as we celebrate our freedom, we also celebrate the improvement in the health care of our people. We are very happy that the life expectancy of South Africans has improved. People used to die at the average age of 53 years in this country. Now they live up to the age of 62 years of age. This means South Africans are now living longer and are much healthier. Those living with HIV and AIDS now receive free medical care and are living healthier lives. Improved treatment is also provided for all other common ailments that are troubling our people, such as diabetes, tuberculosis, or hypertension. We have identified education as an apex priority as well, in addition to health care. Education is a powerful instrument against poverty. It is for this reason that the democratic ANC government has established 3 new universities in Mpumalanga, Northern Cape, and a medical university in Gauteng. We are also building 12 new further education and training colleges and refurbishing others so that more of our youth can have access to education. We have appointed a commission of inquiry to look into the question of funding for higher education, because it needs to be funded. This follows the cry for help by our students, as many want to study, but their parents are poor. We continue to invest in basic education. More than 9 million children attend no-fee schools. The circumstances of the parents should not handicap a child's future. 9 million children are also provided with free meals at school so that hunger does not impair them or impair their concentration in classes. For some, this is the only decent meal for the day, given the circumstances at home. Investing in education will help us to build better communities. Compatriots, for freedom to be complete, the economy of our country must not be skewed among racial lines. We must give practical meaning to the demand of the Freedom Charter that says, and I quote, "All shall share in the country's wealth," unquote. Government will continue to implement black economic empowerment programs as well as affirmative action programs. We have introduced new programs such as the promotion of black participation in the manufacturing sector actively as industrialists. In partnership with the private sector, government will continue to work towards economic transformation so that we can expand our economy and create much needed jobs. Let me also take this opportunity to welcome the continuing cooperation between government and the private sector. consultations with business are ongoing to find ways of igniting economic growth and create jobs to mitigate the punishing global economic climate. We also continue to engage labor. Together, we recently resolved a critical matter relating to worker pensions, which was of concern to the labor movement, especially COSATU. Compatriots, let me reiterate that our freedom was not free. It was fought for, and many lives were lost for its attainment. We therefore have the collective responsibility to defend it as South Africans with the same vigor as when we fought for it. We must unite and not allow anything to threaten the freedom and democracy we fought so hard for. This means we must stop actions that undermine our hard-won freedom, such as engaging in violence. For an example, when people are angry, there is no reason for them to burn factories, as it happened in KwaSithebe, in KwaZulu-Natal recently. You burn the factory, you reduce the chances of job creation. That is a logic conclusion of it. How do we call for job creation and then burn the very factories that are supposed to provide jobs simply because we are angry? Schools, trains, libraries, clinics are all but to provide services and a better life. We must guard and protect these facilities in our communities. They belong to us. It is shocking that some people destroy these facilities so easily. We should report such destructive elements to the police and work together to build better communities where all guard jealously all facilities that are built to make our lives better. People should protest peacefully with dignity in the democratic South Africa. The Constitution allows us to do so, to protest peacefully. If you protest peacefully, you make your concern or complaint to be heard. But if you become violent, you actually undermine the rights of others. Now, the Constitution says your right must be respected, but also you should respect the rights of others. There is no monopoly of the rights. You can't monopolize it and undermine the rights of others. If we are protesting, somebody wants to continue with their normal activities, don't prevent them. Because they must not also prevent or disturb your protest. Once it is violent, it is not acceptable. We should isolate all those who promote violence and anarchy. We know that some within our communities believe such violence will make them popular and try to use anarchy to build their political careers. Let us not allow this to happen in our name as the people. We worked hard to build this country as millions of South Africans. It must not be destroyed by anarchists who have no interest in our well-being. We want to preserve what is there to add on those things that have been delivered. If we ban things, we are in fact delaying delivery. That's a final logic. Compatriots, let me also use this opportunity to urge all of us to unite in promoting our country. While South Africa faces several challenges as a new democracy and a developing country, our country's positive attributes far outweigh the challenges. It should be possible for us to identify issues on which we shall unite no matter what, and not allow party political competition to divide our nation. In fact, people are abusing the political rights. They are generally made to advance ideas and visions that those politicians wish the people should benefit from. Political parties are not meant as instruments to divide people or to create hatred among people. Politicians who do so do not know politics and what needs to be done politically in the country. They must be exposed for what they are. For an example, we should unite on celebrating the achievements that South Africa has scored in 23 years, in 22 years rather, socially, economically, and politically. And we can unpack this in details at all the time, as we will be doing during the elections time, to prove the point I'm making, that politics are there to help people gain a better life, not to create hatred or disrespect. That's not politics, something else. It is a fact that the country is a much better place to live in now than it was before 1994. It's a fact that nobody can dispute. Our country is still receiving accolades for the successful transition to democracy under the leadership of the ANC, and for the solid and well-functioning institutions of governance. We receive compliments abroad for the excellent economic and financial institutions which continue to be an attraction for foreign direct investments. South Africa is complimented for its social assistance program, which very few developing countries are able to manage. providing support to more than 16 million people, especially orphans and vulnerable children. This support has rescued many families who would otherwise not be able to put food on the table. We are complimented for our housing support program for the poor, for free education for the children of the poor, and for many other pro-poor programs. Indeed, this country is trying its best to be the best home for all its citizens, especially the poor. We are happy as government that we have the support of the community as we deliver all these programs. Together, we will continue building better communities. There are those who have decided to make it their full-time job to deny these achievements of our country and to rubbish our country locally and abroad. We must not allow them to succeed in this campaign of theirs. South Africa is a great country. It is a beautiful country. And it has wonderful, remarkable, and hard-working people. We should all celebrate our collective achievements and work to correct whatever needs to be corrected as we move towards a more prosperous society. Let us work together to build our country and move South Africa forward. It is our country. We must build it ourselves as the people of this country, united in action. Compatriots, we will be going to local government elections on the 3rd August. Our message to you is local government is everybody's business. Let us work together to build our communities under the system of democracy. And elections emphasize that point of democracy. Democratic countries regularly go to elections so that people exercise their right to choose those they would want to govern them, or political parties that must govern them. It's a time for the people to participate during elections. On the 5th of December 2015, we marked the 15th anniversary of the democratic local government system in our country. Government has established the Interministerial Committee on Elections to ensure a smooth run-up in preparation for the coming local government elections. Our citizens' faith in our Constitution, democracy, has never been so strong. We have been deepening our understanding of democracy with time. What is important is that we should all humble ourselves. If we are elected at one point and people no longer want you, humble yourself, accept it, so that change will come if people believe we need change now. But you can't take shortcuts. We must exercise the democratic institutions so that we can have a peaceful democratic state wherein the will of the majority prevail. Over the 2 voter registration weekends hosted by the Independent Electoral Commission, over 6.6 million citizens visited voting stations, with 1.3 million of them being new registrations. Almost 80% of these were young people under the age of 30. We congratulate our youth for their interest in participating in how their country is governed. Local government is everybody's business. It's not the business of others and not others, because it is where the majority of us and all of us live. That's where we feel the government. That's why those who are elected, they must be very much clear that they are there for the people, not for themselves. We urge all South Africans to come out in their numbers on the 3rd of August 2016 to exercise their voting right to determine the direction of the country at the level of municipalities, the local government. While we celebrate our achievements in the local government sphere over the last 15 years, we also have a firm eye on the future. The United Nations estimates that over 70% of the South African population will live in urban areas by 2030, with this figure increasing to almost 80% by 2050. The Integrated Urban Development Framework, IUDF, approved by Cabinet yesterday, offers a new deal for the South Africa's towns and cities. The IUDF espouses the vision of creating livable, safe, resources efficient cities and towns that are socially integrated, economically inclusive, and globally competitive, where residents actively participate in urban life. We cannot afford to have people spending hours each day transporting themselves to and from work. We cannot afford to have urban areas that are unsafe and hostile to our citizens. We cannot afford to live in urban space that are not economically inclusive. The IUDF has 4 overall strategic goals aimed at transforming apartheid's spatial legacy to an urban future which is inclusive, resilient, and livable. These are special integration to forge new special forms in settlement, transport, social and economic areas. Inclusion and access. That is, to ensure people have access to social and economic services, opportunities, and choices. Growth, that is, to harness urban dynamism for inclusive, sustainable economic growth and governance, that is, to enhance the capacity of the state and its citizens to work together to achieve special social integration. Since cities are now the engines of economic growth, the IUDF is our blueprint for a better future for all South Africans. Compatriots, the winter initiation session is upon us. The Department of Traditional Affairs has mobilized all stakeholders, including the South African Police Services, the National Prosecuting Authority, Department of Health, traditional leaders, and communities to ensure that we carry out our policy of zero tolerance for initiation deaths. We congratulate the Limpopo province on their achievement of ensuring no death during the initiation session. Well done. We urge all provinces to intensify their efforts to achieve this. Fellow South Africans, let me reiterate that South Africa is a great success story. We have our challenges, however, the positive attributes of our country far outweigh those challenges. As a country, comparatively speaking, we are doing very well. We are trying to solve all problems that were not created by us, but by oppression, apartheid, and colonialism. People today speak as if we created the current problems. No, we are solving the current problems that were created by colonialism and apartheid. Let us point out the challenges so that we can be able to fix them. But in doing so, let us not lose sight of the achievements that we have all scored working together under difficult conditions. Let us not allow those who have decided to ignore the achievements of our beautiful country to make us think we are a failure as a nation, a country, and people. We have done very well. in 22 years. If you look at the history of our countries in our continent, you will not find a country in 20 years that did what we have done. We have consistently remained focused in the main on the side of the poor. And our policies are indeed addressing the problems of the poor. Of course, there are challenges, like in any situation. Yes, we have done well, and will continue to do well until we reach our destination, a truly united, non-racial, non-sexist, and prosperous South Africa, which is accurately described in the National Development Plan. We have a plan. We know where we are going as a country. But nothing can be done on a single day. We cannot find somebody who grows on a single day. You can't give birth to a child in the morning and then in the afternoon he's an old man. It's not possible. A child is born, nurtured, grown, all stages, and all stages are important until they become adult. In no way you can say, because I need a man or a woman in this house, I'm going to give birth in the morning, by afternoon there will be a woman or a man. Not possible. That's against science. That's against the laws of God. South Africa is just 22 years. Imagine if it was a human being. You would still be trying to help to grow. But we've done very well in the 20 years, 2 decades. Bayesu, we wish you a happy Freedom Day today. Just recognize the fact that the government has taken a decision not to celebrate this important day only at the seat of government in Pretoria, wherein other citizens don't have an opportunity to come together to celebrate. We decided to take it out, and we chose Limpopo, Giyani, as a first place. There are very good reasons we did so. So you must welcome and cherish this. We will be taking it to other provinces in future, but we're the first to enjoy this. Congratulations, Limpopo. Congratulations, Giyani. Let us continue working together to move South Africa forward. Let us love our country as we love ourselves. Let us make it a beautiful country. It is a beautiful country. The power is in our hands, where we want to take South Africa to. Each time we celebrate, we must know this country is growing to be an adult. Thank you very much to the leaders who led us, Nelson Mandela and others. Thank you very much. And indeed, we want to say, long live South Africa, long live. Long live democracy, long live. Long live the people of South Africa, long live. Thank you very much. Re a leboga.